spiel anyway, so we don't need quorum for that. We have quorum anyway. Good afternoon. First of all, we apologize for the late start for the 1 p.m. Agenda items. We had a lot of technical difficulties this morning. Hopefully we won't have any this afternoon. Good afternoon. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Laura Alderson, Neil Palmer, Sophia Ruddick, and Stan Kumarik. I am Michael Clark, and I'm the panel chair. All registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you can include your name, your address, and your email address, because Committee of Adjustments and the TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending appeal updates and notifications by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances, to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. I will call each item in the order listed in the agenda. With one exception, we'll be starting off with hearing item number 27 due to some scheduling conflicts. In making your submissions, when an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please start off by stating your name and address clearly for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent proceeds first and makes the presentation to the committee on a contested application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers and answer any questions that were asked by the speakers. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the application is then taken into the committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff to declare on the matters before us in this afternoon's agenda?
I need to declare a conflict of interest on item number 28, which is 1031 Weston Road.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Alderson.
We just need the reason for it.
State the reason or nature of the conflict.
I can do that. I'm a consultant to the Mount Dennis BIA, and as the property falls within those boundary lines, I'm afraid I'm not able to comment on it.
Okay, fair enough. Noted, and I guess you can step away for a break when we hear that application. Okay, no one else has anything to declare? Okay. In that case, we can start off with the first application, item number 27, 64 King Street. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the property into two residential lots. And on the conveyed part to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And part one, just to maintain the existing historical detached dwelling on the property with two variances by the virtue of it being severed. And for part two, to construct a detached dwelling where there was two variances. They've now sent us revised plans. They've now deleted the variances suggested for the new detached dwelling on the conveyed part. We also have a tree declaration. We have heritage memos advising us of the significance and the fact that this house was built by William Tyrrell in 1859, and suggesting that in the event of approval, there be some conditions that set out both architectural conditions and urban design conditions. We have many letters of opposition, actually 6. We have the councillor who's going to be making a deputation opposed to the application, and Metrolink's advisory comments, as well as the standard engineering construction services memo in the event when we have consents, tree photos, tree declaration, and 2 covering letters from the applicant, as well as the revisions. So we have a number of speakers registered to speak on this application. The applicant, the agent is Vladimir Nickel, and then we have 5 deputations, including Councillor Nunziata. So we'll hear from Councillor Nunziata after we've heard from the applicant. Okay, Mr. Nickel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Valdemar Nickel. Hello, committee members, councillor, and residents. My name is Valdemar Nickel. I am a planner with NOR Architects and Engineers on behalf of the property, and I'll try and keep my presentation as brief as possible today, as I know there was much to discuss here. As an update, we have withdrawn 2 of the variances for density and building length, and have, that's on part 2, the severed piece, have redesigned the entire building to have a significant heritage context, a contextual feel. The garage has been moved to the rear. There is greater sight lines, and therefore the only variances that we're asking for to approve the severance is to legalize or to authorize a front yard parking stall. And what I'd like to say is the parking stall, the location that is chosen in that Crescent driveway, we thought was a logical location. There is opportunity to present something of a rear yard parking stall, but that would involve some tree reduction and further loss of landscaping. So we thought it would be most appropriate from a heritage perspective to maintain that Crescent driveway and have a parking in the front of that driveway. So based on those.
You might as well tell the applicant to stop speaking. Can you get in touch with him? Just tell him to stop? Because he's going to end up talking. He's probably talking.
Sorry, Vladimir.
Enter the event
Stop
panelist
talking.
numeric
1 sec, we actually
password,
lost him.
followed by pound.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're.
Therefore, with those,
Hello, sir, Mr. Nickel.
Yes,
as we were having a problem this morning, we lost the room. I think the other members, have you continued to hear what Mr. Nickel was saying? You heard, okay. I just didn't hear it, so that's fine. You don't have to back up. I guess I would focus. I understand you've removed the variances from the new build and the other 2 variances, obviously, and you've redesigned the property, which is very nice. But I think the objections are to the severance itself and the loss of the surrounding lands that go along with this heritage property. So I would,
That's
I would, you know,
correct,
it's very
sir. I was
nice that
just
you
get-
took away those variances. I don't know if that was a strategic reason or not, but I think the neighborhood of the opposition is the actual severance and not to the variances. Okay, please
Right,
continue.
and that was,
So you don't have to back up because I didn't hear about a 30 seconds, but the other members did.
Yeah.
Thanks.
thank you,
I'll give you
Mr. Chair.
extra
That's
time.
where I was, and thank you, that's where I was heading towards,
Yes.
is certainly the variances are minor, and that
Yeah.
the consent now is, I think, what is the contentious one, but I would like to highlight
Yes.
that the consent is meeting all the applicable zoning bylaws in terms of lot shape, size, dimension. It's replicable in the neighborhood. It's comparable to other lots in the neighborhood. And even the positioning of the building has been strategically located to ensure sight lines to the historic Tyrrell House. And I'd like to add that there's no proposed modifications whatsoever to the heritage asset. We have a statement from our heritage consultant, ERA, that as well as archaeological reports done.
Yeah.
So what we
Okay,
believe
but
is the
all I'm saying
consent
is you have a
given-
limited amount of time. I would concentrate on the fact that they feel, the neighbors head feels that the heritage property, the heritage house includes lands, and to take that away, you know, takes away a major part. The fact is, it's a heritage building and not compared to other residences in the neighborhood. That's the elephant
Thank you,
in the
Mr.
room.
Chair.
Okay, please
if-
proceed. I'll give
if
you
I
extra
can-
time. It's an important application. I'll give
Yes.
you extra time. Go ahead.
It certainly is, and thank you. If I can just then go back to the existing condition in where the entire front lot is paved and there's a two-car garage standing there. What the proposal entails is to some landscaping and to build a new structure inbound of that garage, meaning further north of the garage, in order to create a stronger holding form. Certainly, the garage is not a strong heritage attribute, and I don't think that form there adds any value into the lot fabric in and of itself. Certainly, I believe that a building that has heritage context, as we've proposed, would anchor down the predominance of that Tyrrell House, and certainly the sight lines and the views and all the rest would be maintained as a heritage resource for that corner. So I'd be very happy to respond to the councillor's comments or concerns, or go back to the questions that we have the multiple letters of objection on, to try and keep within my 4 minutes or 5 minutes of talking points here. So, but to close, I do believe that the proposed consent does meet the intent of the Planning Act in shape, size, lot fabric is replicable, meets all the zoning bylaw, and therefore meets the intent of the official plan in terms of policies, provides gentle intensification, and certainly we have some positive support from planning, not an objection, and we are very happy to entertain whatever heritage considerations need to be looked at for the existing structure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nicol.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the agent before we move on to the other speakers? Okay.
I have one question through the chair, if I may. Is it the intention of the current owner to renovate or restore the historic building as a part of this proposal?
It certainly is, to the best of my knowledge. I believe some of the severance profit or sale would go to the restoration of the house, and that is part of it. Yes.
Because it's been allowed to fall into considerable disrepair.
Yes, and I certainly appreciate.
Enter the
that
event
as a
panelist numeric
significant concern of
password,
the
followed by
residents. So,
pound.
yes, that would be right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I guess let's hear from Councillor Nunziata to start off, unless Councillor you'd like to go at the end, but I don't know what your timing is like.
And then I'll listen to the residents. So thank you very much. I'm here in opposition to the Committee of Adjustment application. Just a history of 64 King Street. The Tyrrell House was built in 1859, and it was designated in the former city of York in 1974. William Tyrrell was the first reeve of the village of Weston. He served from 1882 and 1886. So in this particular application, 64 King Street, as far as the severance and what the proposal is the whole area. The Weston Historic Society is going through heritage designation, and they've completed phase 1 and they're working on phase 2. What makes it so unique in the Weston Village is the homes, the heritage homes, and as well as the property. And in this particular property, I've had problems with this property for many years, as far as the owner not maintaining the home. She was actually operating an illegally a retirement home, and the province revoked her license because she was operating illegally. We've had complaints over and over again about the maintenance. And so for years we've had problems with the owner. Yes, maybe planning department doesn't have any comments because it meets the Planning Act. But what they don't see is when you have a heritage district and when these homes are designated heritage, it's not just the home that's heritage, it's also the property. And when you start severing a heritage property, you change the whole character of the community. And so there are other homes in Weston as well that are heritage that's been designated. And to say that, it won't have any impact in the community and that the planning department has no comments. Well, of course they don't have any comments because they're commenting on the as far as the Planning Act. Now, unfortunately, when this property was designated in 1974, there was a little error in the bylaw that was made in 1974 in the former city of York. And yes, the home is designated heritage, but as far as the property, it was not, which should have been under the new provincial act. So I did move a motion at council just recently to amend the designation and to include a statement explaining the property's culture heritage. So that got passed by council. This home is one of the most heritage homes that we have in Weston, and the community is totally against the application for severance. And as I said, when you're having problems with a property owner for years that's not complying by the rules and the bylaws, and that continue to not maintain the property, I'm very concerned that if the severance is granted, that we will even create a bigger problem with the property owner, and it would change the whole character of Weston. We have worked very hard, the Weston Historic Society, over the years for heritage designation. And as I said, we completed phase 1. We're working on phase 2. And I think it's a mistake to sever this heritage property. And we do not, and if this happens, this will set precedent for other homes in Weston, which we don't want. We have, over the years, have received a number of applications for severing properties in Weston. And we as a committee and as a community have opposed all the applications, and they've been appealed and we've won. Because when you're in a heritage district, the whole character, once you start severing property, it just changes the whole character of the heritage aspect of the community. So I'm totally opposed to this application, and I know that the community is opposed as well. I've been receiving a number of letters and emails, and so I'm hoping that the committee will refuse this application. And I know I've spoken to Preservation Services, and they're in a bind because, as I said, when it was designated in 1974, when you designate property, it doesn't include the property around the home. And so we want to amend that. And so any future applications that come in, that we are protected from builders or homeowners coming in wanting to sever their properties. So I urge the members of the Committee of Adjustment to please support us in Weston. We value our heritage in the village of Weston, and I'm asking you to please oppose the application.
Thank you, Councillor. Just want to make a comment, you know, and I know that the main crux of this is whether the Heritage House should include this lot, the portion that's looking to be severed, or whether it stands on its own. Now, the problem I have is that Heritage seems to be okay, that would, and as Ms. Alderson said, perhaps the fact that this individual makes money from selling, hopefully they'll use that to improve the property. I guess there's no guarantee of that. But, you know, you mentioned also something about the Planning Act. Of course, planning had no comment. They're dealing under the Planning Act. Well, so unfortunately, so are we. So that's all I have to say. And the fact that if she's been a bad actor, the current owner, and I don't dispute that, as I said at the outset, we're not supposed to talk. That's sort of making our comments limited to the nature of the application. So hopefully, I don't think we're allowed to hold her bad actor status. This is a permanent change for the property, not for just this owner. So those are just my comments.
Right.
You know, we're under the Planning Act.
If I can make a comment, yes, we did have a meeting with Preservation Services, and it's Preservation Services that recommended that I put this motion through council to correct, to amend the designation bylaw. And that's why Preservation Services had to comment the way they did, is the way the bylaw was passed in 1974.
Okay. Yeah, because in their two memos, they want conditions, obviously, but they don't seem to have any problem with the severance itself. Anyway, let's hear from the others. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Nunziata? And Councillor, thank you for taking your time out, as you always do, to address this committee on matters that are important to York and to your constituents.
I do have a comment. I do have a comment to make. You know, I'm very aware of this particular property and its historical significance. I guess my concern is, because it has been allowed to fall into disrepair, how is preventing the severance going to help that property? Will it not just become a property that's allowed to deteriorate and it becomes a demolition through neglect issue? And the garage that would be torn down is certainly not part of the heritage aspect of the particular property. So that would be I have those concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson. The fact that giving this severance and putting funds in the hand of the owner put perhaps, and we've seen in our pictures, this property is deteriorating significantly. And if it continues to do so, you're right, it could be a tear down. So in terms of the heritage aspect, perhaps the best thing is to let them proceed. But that's up for the committee members to decide. Next speaker, I guess, is Dave Bennett, the chair of the Weston Village Residents Association. Welcome, Dave.
Oh, and thank you. Welcome. Thank you. I object to this severance. I'd like to take the time to thank the Weston residents for taking the time to submit all their objection letters, and for the councillor, Francis Nunziata, for submitting the member's motion to update the existing heritage designation bylaw subject to this property. The staff report dated November 10th states the property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Act. I agree with Liam's objection letter stating that if 64 King Street is registered as a property of historic importance, I don't understand how this application is even being heard. It seems that the applicant has discovered an inadequacy in our Ontario Heritage Act. The councillor's motion will address this, but the Terrell House and all Toronto heritage properties are in jeopardy until that time. When I think of a heritage property, I usually imagine it being accompanied by an expansive property. I believe it's vital that everyone here today understands that 64 King Street is not a new designation, as mentioned by the councillor. The current owners purchased the property years ago, knowing it was designated, and the house has suffered ever since. The neighbor across the street from 64 King on the corner of King and Rosemount. 125 Rosemount is a beautifully cared for historic home owned by Eric Jensen. Eric has also submitted a letter of objection, and his family is an excellent example of a heritage caretaker, as their home is not neglected, which tells me historic homes can be maintained in today's market. Philip Kersted's objection letter stated the Terrell chose a large corner lot to ensure adequate physical distancing from its neighbors. The green space is the subject of this application is integral to the look and feel of the property. It enhances the Terrell house. It's not a patch of grass that needs to be developed. Pearls Goodman's objection letter references a non-designated property, 18 Fern Avenue, Severance, which was denied at the ONB. The expansive property, much so like this one, was kept whole and is a beautiful example of Weston's history. The applicant's revised plans dated November 4th, page 19, shows the neglect of the roof. Currently, 64 King Street is unoccupied. Unoccupied properties with failing roofs are a recipe for demolition by neglect. Approving this opportunist severance seems to reward a neglected designated property, and it will create a precedent, a negative precedent for our Weston Village and preservation services, a precedent I'm worried that Toronto will not recover from. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bennett before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, the next speaker is Sherry Hurst, the president of the Weston Historical Society and Conservation District.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, hello, and my name is Sherry Hurst, and I live at 153 King Street. And as mentioned, I'm the president of the Weston Historical Society. I would like to offer my and the Society's objections to the severance of the property located at 64 King Street in Weston. The original owner, William Tyrrell, was one of Weston's most influential and significant forefathers. For over 60 years, he nurtured the small hamlet and oversaw its growth. He designed and built bridges, mills, warehouses, town halls, churches, stores, and houses from the mouth of the Humber River north to Woodbridge, as far east as Kingston, and as far west as Sarnia. He was elected to the York Township Council and dealt with the need for good roads and bridges, assessments for local purposes, and provision for the indigent. As a deputy reeve, he became a delegate to the York and Peel counties and was responsible for inter-township public works and for general school business. Tyrrell was able to obtain a grant towards building the first grammar school in Weston. He donated 2 acres of his own land and $500 of his own money toward its construction. After purchasing his 10 acres of land in the heart of Weston, he built in 1859 the Brick House. And Brick House has a capital B and a capital H because that's what they called the house. And that's what's now known as 64 King Street. It was his home and center of operations. When he became the Reeve of Weston in 1881, the Eastern Wing acted as his office/courtroom. Many times he would request people to step outside to try and settle their differences peacefully in the showpiece that was the Tyrrell Lawn and Gardens. Waiting their turn to see Justice of the Peace Tyrrell wasn't such a chore when you got to wait in the beautiful setting of the Tyrrell Roses, which were incidentally known all over the county. During the 1850s, the Grand Trunk Railway was planning a new line northwest from Toronto. The Scarlett family lobbied hard for a route along the west bank of the Humber River that would bypass Weston. Tyrrell headed a group of Weston citizens who were willing to donate land to form a right-of-way through Weston as a gift to the railroad. When a legal cloud on title was raised, it was Tyrrell himself who traveled to the U.S. to investigate and obtained evidence to show the claim had lapsed. The Grand Trunk Railway was completed in 1856, and it's not too much to suggest that this ensured the survival of Weston. Tyrrell's friends were as diverse as Sir John A. Macdonald and William Gamble, for whom he built the old mill. His son was Roland Burr of Berwick, which is now known as the Woodbridge, and his father to Joseph Burr Tyrrell, the famous geologist and explorer of the Canadian North. Joseph was born and grew up in the Brick House and played on its lawns. It was J.B. Tyrrell who, in his travels, made a discovery of the first dinosaur bones in Alberta, and for whom the Royal Tyrrell Museum is named. There is more to a heritage property than just a building. It is also the streetscape and setting that the building is on. As mentioned earlier, the gardens and lawns of the Tyrrell property were loved and used as much as the home. Would you approve the land around Toronto City Hall or the Parliament buildings being severed and used for more building? I bring the history of William Tyrrell to you today to show that these grounds and view are every bit as significant for Weston as those views are for Toronto. To preserve this streetscape and building, the property was designated as Francis said, in 1974. Throughout this designation bylaw, the term property is used again and again. Only in one line does it mention just the building. Obviously, the designation was meant to cover the whole property. There is a fabric in Weston that is made up of many different threads. Some of those threads are the different sized lots in our area. When you sever a lot, you pull on one of those threads and weaken the whole fabric until it finally breaks and is no more. Other threads that make up Weston's fabrics are the views, trees, and structures, and should not be tampered with. Please consider letting Weston live on with its large historical lots, views, and buildings intact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Hurst? Panel members, anyone have any questions for Ms. Hurst before we go to the next speaker? And the next speaker is Shayna Hodson of 128 Rosemont Avenue.
I live at 128 Rosemont, which is directly across the street. I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm sorry if my comments are rushed. I only received the package yesterday afternoon. I know that we're supposed to keep our comments related to the severance, but I think some of the comments that Councillor Nunziata noted do apply to the severance. You're hoping that the money from the sale will go to the upkeep of this historical house that really is the center of Weston. But this person has repeatedly shown that that's not going to happen. This person has failed to be compliant with authorities, has failed to comply with court orders, has routinely, through a STAR investigation, was earning $25,000 to $30,000 a month from residents, yet none of that money went into the house. I have no belief that any of that money will go to the house, and it will be poorly upkept. So I can appreciate that the severance would bring in some money, but this person has already shown that they failed to comply repeatedly, that they've misled regulators, authorities. This is just par for the course. This has gone on since we've lived there, that the house has been failed to comply with any of the orders. So I have a hard time believing that the money will go to the upkeep of that house, especially if by own admission through the owner that they were intaking $25,000 a month in residence fees. None of that money went to upkeep the house. So I can appreciate in good faith that people want to believe that, but the residents are the ones who actually have to live with the outcome, which has been evidently shown and proven, not just through the residents, but through legal proceedings has been shown. So I think that severing that off and that historical there will only add to the problems, and I don't think the historical house will be kept up. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide my comments.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hodson. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Hodson before we go back to the applicant to respond to the concerns of the
Sorry,
council
through you,
and
Mr.
neighbors?
Chair, there is actually one other speaker at 130 Rosemount. It's Paul.
Another speaker? I don't have it on my list. So.
It's actually right after Dave Bennett. We just skipped.
Oh, Paola Mior at 137 Rosemont. My mistake.
That's okay.
Okay. Paola Mior.
It's Paul.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, committee chair and committee members. My name is Paul Mior. My family and I reside at 137 Rosemount Avenue, and we've lived in Weston for over 25 years. Our home is located 2 properties north of the subject property and was originally a parcel of the Tyrrell property. My family and I have reviewed the proposed application. The current zoning does permit a lot as proposed in the current application. In fact, it exceeds the minimum standards as it relates to frontage and lot area. I would like to ask the committee to consider the requested variances as they've been revised today as it relates to the parking, that they not be granted. I believe that due to the size of the remaining lot, should the committee approve the consent to sever, the new lot could accommodate the bylaw provision. Having said that, our family does support this application because we believe it's good development and attracting additional families to our neighborhood. And it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. In closing, I understand that this may not be the correct forum, but I would like to note that we too concur with the neighborhood's sentiment that it is a travesty that the current property owner is permitting this wonderful architectural gem to fall in disrepair. I thank the committee and please consider not to grant the variances.
Sorry, your position is you're in not to grant the variances? Or?
Not to grant the variances, but to grant the consent to sever. The
Okay.
variances for the parking.
Sir, there are no variances for the new build. There are no variances. They've withdrawn the 2 variances for the new house.
And-
There are 2 variances for the existing house due to the fact that once it's severed, the land area changes. So there are 2 automatic, but I just want to make sure we know your position. You were in favor of the severance, but you didn't
We're in
want
favor of this. Correct. We're in favor of the severance, but with the severance, automatically the parking kicks in that they want front yard parking.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, I understand now.
So if the
don't
committee
want-
grants,
Yeah, you don't want the front yard parking, but you
correct,
want
the property's big enough that they can accommodate the proper parking as provided, as required in the bylaw.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's any parking. Is there a parking variance? I don't believe so.
Yes, there is.
There
Yes,
is.
there is.
Okay. So you're saying you would grant this, you would like the severance, but you don't like the variance for parking? Just want to
For
make
the
sure I know
remaining
your position.
For part one, there's 2 variances, which were variances 3 and 4 that have been revised.
Okay. All right, the 2 variances on the retained lot.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any questions? And sir, that's all you want? You want to add anything else? I don't want to stop you if you have more to say.
No, that's it. Thank you,
Okay, sir,
committee.
thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Mior?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to understand, I understand the objection to the parking in the front of the house. Would you be okay with them doing parking at the back then? Because that would be their alternative.
Well, according to the bylaw, the first one is to have parking off of a side street, which in this case would be Rosemount, and it would be in a
Correct. So you're not opposed to the parking coming off of Rosemount?
Not at all. I think that keeps it in character.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's go back then. Mr. Nickel, you can please respond to the comments of the various speakers.
Yes, hello, thank you. So thank you all, Councillor and residents, for your comments. As some background, we have tried to reach out to the councillor's office on, I think, 4 separate occasions. We've also delivered packages of the revised plan to the neighbors that submitted letters of objection in advance of November the 6th. If I could ask to reference page A4.4, that has a rendering of the before and after of the severed parcel. And what I'd like to do is try to find out what the community is interested in. Part of my outreach was
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
line number or page number 4.4 to be illustrative of, we talked about heritage fabric. Right now, the current comment was that the space around the house should be protected. But if we look at the existing condition, that space is all paved with a fairly aged garage. And certainly that, I believe our proposal increases the green space, increases the landscaping, and creates better view corridors to the proposal. If we could just keep scrolling down to the rendering, it's at the end of the package. That would be, I think, illustrative of the suggestion. There it is. So that's the proposal. And if we go down one more page, please. That's the proposal that's being presented today. And if we scroll down, if we'll put it into context, one more page, please, 4.4. There's the garage that's being proposed in the rear. And just to answer the last resident's question, yes, here's a before and after. The reason for the front yard variance parking is there is a Crescent driveway currently. And putting another driveway in the rear off of Rosemount and building a garage or parking pad in the rear, I think from a heritage perspective, undermines all that the community is looking for. I've heard today that you want more green space. Putting a parking stall in the rear of the building takes away trees, takes away green space, and creates another driveway when you already have a driveway in the front. So I'd like to maintain that variance as truly being minor in nature and actually appropriate for the property, because that was the approach, the ceremonial approach to the house. I'd like to understand what the community is looking for, and you suggested some of those things. I think the proposal in front of you with the variance, the consent, actually is an enhancement to the neighborhood and provides better viewpoints than the garage in its current state, because I don't see how that fabric, that lot fabric that's permitted is going to enhance the heritage attributes of it. I also understand that the Weston Heritage District is still being completed, so it's not a completed study. That's just a comment to the councillor's review of the neighborhood context. And certainly, I think the proposal that we've put forward has taken heritage references and put an incredibly well-fitted proposed building to transition into the neighborhood. I think that those are some of the comments. I'm just, going through my notes. There are quite a few comments being made. The designation in the bylaw, I just would like to mention, does not include any landscape features or lot fabric as a heritage attribute. That it's not a listed or designated comment there. The property is within the study area. I agree with the councillor. Heritage staff are in support of that, and we are willing to even go further with conditions offering a letter of credit. And I think the prominence of the building will be enhanced with the development of this house and some opportunity to bring up some landscaping. So if there's anything else I can answer through committee, I'd be very pleased to have that dialogue of how repairs can occur and bring this asset back to some sort of a higher standard.
Wow,
Thank you.
Exactly 5 minutes. Thank you. You must have practiced.
I did have my watch on. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions then for the applicant or any of the speakers at this point, or someone we take it into committee for a decision?
I do have a question. So was it your firm that actually contracted with ERA to comment on the, to put forward a memo for the, on the building itself? Was it you yourself that hired that firm? Just curious.
So ERA is a heritage consulting firm in the city. I believe the architect had contracted ERA early on to prepare the heritage memo.
Component, yes. Okay,
Nor Architects is the planner, is the planning consultant on it.
okay, sorry. And also, do you know if anyone has been in touch with the neighbor directly adjacent to this property, number 68 King? I don't recall seeing any letter from them, and they certainly did not make any deputation today. And their garage is directly adjacent to the garage in the concerning property.
Yeah, perhaps
Correct.
staff can check. I see we had 7 additional opposition letters and the additional materials we received yesterday. Can
Okay.
staff check to see? I don't have that open in front of me if it's one of those letters. Or perhaps Lori, you checked those and it wasn't one of those?
I just don't remember seeing anything.
Okay.
If there was something from the neighbors directly adjacent to 64 King at
Well,
68.
here's- I think Nicole is scrolling through the 7 letters we just received. And I would
You
like
can
to
see
keep
the
that-
property,
yeah.
you can see the property in the rendering on the bottom,
Yes,
bottom
yes.
hand side.
There is one from 68 King.
There is, okay.
And they're in opposition.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
So
it's the second letter.
the second letter of the 7 we received in the additional materials.
No, from the original
Oh, from
package.
the original package. Oh, okay.
It's labeled opposition 2.
Okay. Okay, there you have it, Laura. It was there. Mr. DiBartolomeo. Could you leave, just while we're in deliberation, could you please put up on the screen that last rendering which shows the existing and what's proposed? Because I think that's a very, very good photo to have up. And let's see if there are any remaining questions for anyone, or let's bring it into committee for a decision. We've spent, we've been on this
Chair,
almost an hour. Yep.
Chair, no questions for the applicant, but just a comment. There was a couple of people who mentioned about the planners just looking at the Planning Act, and that's not entirely accurate. We're required to look at not just the Planning Act, but any provincial statute that would affect this decision. So that includes a provincial policy statement and matters of provincial interest. And that includes heritage matters. So we do have comments and suggested conditions from heritage planning. So I'm satisfied that it's been reviewed, not just from the Planning Act, but from matters of all provincial statutes. Just a comment from me.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I couldn't see your hand up.
Sorry, it's, yeah, the box is getting smaller. Just a question to the applicant. He's proposing a letter of credit. Now, I'm trying to understand what amount, and would that be contingent on, would that be in the control of heritage preservation? And I'd like to get some more details on that.
Right, so it's a proposal that I'm putting forward right now, so it hasn't been worked out, but we could agree with the manager of Heritage Preservation Services to a commercially reasonable amount to be applied to, I think, identified works that need, I heard the roof needs repair versus the front gables or the front porch, so we could allocate some resources to improve those identified attributes. And I think it would be, a letter of credit would be posted to the city. So the city, if we use the example, 25,000 or 50,000 or something of that nature, that would be posted to the city so those works can be completed. And when those works are completed, then that letter is returned. But we would need to have a study to determine what the value of those works is and where it has to be applied first. There's no point in painting the window frames when the roof is in need of repair. So we need to have that study undertaken, and we have an heritage consultant on it to do a condition assessment for the state of repair.
Okay, so I'm just struggling with how the wording on that would work.
Yeah, I put that.
Sorry, excuse me, if I can just interject. Was this something that was proposed by one of the departments or by the applicant in a sort of?
It was by myself.
Okay, so Madam Secretary Treasurer, could you please weigh in as to whether this is an appropriate area that we should be delving into or going down a rabbit hole of figuring out money, certain sums of monies to affect certain repairs? Is that not within our purview and up to whose jurisdiction? Would it be planning, heritage? Is this appropriate or
No,
proper or not?
No, it wouldn't be an appropriate condition. It's not been requested by city staff. And if they haven't requested it, there's no mechanism to make sure that it's something that they should even be involved with. And they may not feel comfortable accepting a letter of credit. And at that point, the application or the condition wouldn't be able to be fulfilled. And it'll put them in a difficult position.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're looking at mechanisms to provide you and the community and the councillor with confidence that the condition can be improved.
Sir, you're a
and
planner?
that is
You
good
should have,
enough.
if you wanted to do that, you should have canvassed that with the various city departments. It's not up to the committee to, of
Understood.
their own volition, to impose a condition and put in 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, and to do plumbing or to do roofs. That's not our position here. Our position is to approve or reject applications under the Planning Act case codes.
Understood. Thank
It's
you,
not
sir.
up to us to put in conditions that we dream up or that the applicant dreams up during their deputation. If you wanted to do that, it's something you should have canvassed with one of the, actually, Heritage isn't even opposed to your application, so I don't know who you would have dealt with the neighbors, the councillor, but at this point to bring that up, I'm certainly not comfortable with that. We don't have the authority to impose conditions and put in monetary amounts and figure out what should be fixed and what shouldn't be fixed. Okay, so.
Thank you, sir. That was simply consideration of good faith. Thank you, sir.
So let's bring it into committee for a decision. Yes, sir, Mr. Kamarik.
Would like to do some preliminary prefixing before I make a motion. I think we're confined to making our decision based on planning merits and on essentially whether this complies with the Planning Act or not, or whether we think it's good, constitutes good planning. And from that perspective, I don't think there's any argument. I think the issue here, and this is why the letter of credit was of interest to me, the issue here is, how do we ensure that the applicant is a good neighbor? And I believe that's where Heritage was going with their conditions with regards to the new build. And they're asking for conditions that include their approval of the architectural permit, or the final and binding permit drawing. So anyway, that's all my background.
Does that lead to a motion? We've only spent an hour on this one, so I think it's time we have to make a decision.
I feel compelled that the only motion I can make is one to approve the severance. And with a whole lot of conditions. And the conditions would be forestry condition 2 and 3, the usual transportation and engineering conditions, heritage conditions relating to architectural assessment, which are 1, 2, 3, 4 that are laid out, and also heritage conditions that the final and binding permit drawings are subject to the satisfaction and review of the senior manager of heritage planning. And if we could have put some kind of condition to ensure that the retained portion,
No, we lost him again.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
No, Heritage had 2 sets of conditions.
the
Yes, sir. Stan, we lost.
suggesting that we should approve.
Stan, hold
the
on a
parking.
second. Stan, after you said,
Yep.
we've been offline for the last 20 seconds or so. So I think the last thing you were saying, you wanted the conditions of two sets of heritage conditions, the urban forestry, and then you started to say about an additional condition dealing with, and that's where we lost you when you started talking about how do we ensure that they spend money on improving the retained property. And I think the answer is you can't, but I don't know what you were saying because we lost you. The room went dead again for about the 15th time
Okay,
today.
no, yeah, you basically summed up what I was saying. What I haven't addressed is the variance for the parking, and I was trying to elaborate on that and say that I think since the community is concerned about preserving green space, I think we should preserve the green space and allow the parking variance. Not necessarily, I think the parking should just be confined within the crescent that exists. But anyway, I'm assuming we're approving that variance by doing that.
Okay, so that's your motion. Barb, you have that motion clarified?
Can I have a question of staff? Can we impose a site plan condition or site plan control on the retained portion?
No, it's not required for a residential parcel, and it would have been identified in the zoning review if site plan was applicable here.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could make it applicable, but I guess we can't.
No, because if it's not applicable in the site plan bylaw, then planning would just waive that as a condition because it
I see.
isn't.
Okay.
Okay, I was just trying to grapple with how to deal with the parking in a
You can tie it to the site plan on file, which is the circular driveway.
yeah, that's not the site. Their site plan indicates a parking spot in the middle, which I think takes away from the heritage of that site. So that's my concern with it.
Okay, I think before we deal with that motion, I just want to point out one of the conditions that Stan has included is the second condition from the November 10th Heritage Memo of prior issuance of building permit, yada, 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 manager of heritage planning, their heritage permit shall be improved. So I think that's where some of the stuff that Laura's been talking about, how do we make sure they fix the roof and they do something, make sure this building doesn't deteriorate so that it's still around the next owner to really do a nice bang up job of fixing it up if this owner doesn't. And I think that's perhaps where we can all take some comfort that perhaps that condition that the heritage manager can, as a condition of signing off on those building permit drawings, get some concession. And that's just off the top of my head, but that's at least, I think that's why we're all feeling bad about this, because we want to see that. So perhaps that's how that can get accomplished. That's all I have to say. So we have Stan's, thank you, Stan, for that motion.
Mike,
We
if
have
I can
a
just
second for that.
add 2 cents before that. I'm just not sure if they have the authority to impose that on the retained portion, and that was my concern.
Well, you and I certainly don't have the right to do that, so maybe the heritage manager does. Okay, so that's maybe how we're going to do it. So thank you for your motion. We have a seconder for Mr. Komarik's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor?
Yeah, that was well put together, Mr. Komarik. And I'm satisfied we've met everything we needed to in terms of the severance.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Ruddick dissenting. Thank you very much. Applicant, thank you very much, Councillor and neighbors. And I hope we've...
Mr. Chair.
I hope we made the right
Councillor,
decision
thank you.
here. Okay, so that was our first application of the afternoon, and it's an important one. It took over an hour. Let's return then to item number 21, 172 Eileen Avenue.
Andrew Trotter, I'm the agent designer.
Yeah, Andy, hold on a second. I know you're chomping at the bit. This is to construct a second story above the existing dwelling and a new front porch. A previous Committee of Adjustment application approved variances relating to various setbacks for the two-story rear addition and rear deck. That was built sometime in, that was approved from January 2020. There were 3 variances. We have Metrolinx advisory comments. That's all we have. This is for a second story addition above the dwelling and a new front porch, and there are 3 variances. Welcome, Mr. Trotter.
Thank you. The only thing I really have to say is that we got the first variances covered a couple years ago, and then they decided that they could afford to expand the addition, and that's where we're at now. So no construction started. We're just hoping to get this through. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer whatever you wish.
Okay, I think it's pretty self-explanatory what they got in 2020, and now they want to do some extra work at the same time. And we have no comments from neighbors or from city departments, just the advisory Metrolinx. Members, any questions, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Paul?
I'll move for approval. The requested variances are minor in nature and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act, and no conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconded for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Trotter.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Item number 22, 119 Stephen Drive. It's an application to legalize and maintain the existing building and parking deficiencies. A total of 6 dwelling units are provided. We have an order to comply from October 2020. Ravine natural features protection have no conditions. Planning is recommending refusal on the basis that these are 2 dwellings in excess of the 4 permitted. And it's not, it should be, if they wanted that, they should go by way of a zoning bylaw amendment, would be more appropriate for that proposal. And transportation has, looking for a deferral regarding the parking, location of accessible parking space, etc. So planning is looking for refusal, transportation was looking to defer. And we have one speaker, Oris Stoyanovsky.
Good afternoon, Chairman Committee.
Good afternoon,
My name is
sir.
Morris Stanowski. I'm an agent on this application.
Yes, sir. I think we should get a presentation since community planning is opposed to your application.
Sure. This is basically existing condition. This dwelling was originally constructed as a 4-plex years ago and was purchased by a new owner in 90s. And since mid-2000, for more than 10 years, it was functioning as a 6-plex, as we have shown in our drawings. So it's basically legalizing the existing condition. And also, we would like to amend our application by removing variances number 3, 4, and number 6. There is plenty of space behind the building, and we could make slight adjustments to remove those variances. Just they represent the existing condition without any work.
Sorry, 3,
And
4, and
also-
sorry, 3, 4, and 6.
3, 4, and 6. And
Okay, so
also,
just
since
hold
we
on
have
a
an
second.
extra-
So does that take care of the transportation deferral request, or would they still? I'm asking you whether that means that the transportation deferral request is no
should.
longer applicable, or are there other things that they may be concerned with that you're not deleting?
Number 5, they might be.
Okay.
Actually, they confirmed over the phone that they should not be concerned with that one, but unfortunately, they didn't have a chance to review the revised application.
Okay.
And also, variance number 7, we would like to improve that one since we have an extra space behind the building, and we can remove a little bit of asphalt to provide more green space. So we would like to increase the number to 41% instead of 36%.
So increasing that one, and you're deleting variances 3, 4,
and 6.
3, 4, and 6, and revising 7, but 5 stays in. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
What is the square meters of number 7?
Number 7 would be 391.64.
okay, Mr. Stoyanovsky, what you said is, to legalize an existing condition. You said it was a 4-plex, and somehow. So when was it converted, and how was it converted to a 6-plex? Where were these additional 2 units created?
Sure. So one of the units in the basement, I think it was from the very beginning included as a 5th unit, and then the unit inside the garage, which you see, the one that created order to comply, was created roughly mid 2000, like 10 years ago or so, as per owner.
Okay, so they didn't eat into the other 4. It's not like you split one of the other 4 into another unit. You had found additional ones in the basement and garage. Okay.
Yeah, basically that garage was functioning as a storage from the very beginning. So at some point they decided to introduce a unit.
No, I think it was important to find out whether these were additional, as you mentioned, because there is a dire need of affordable units in the city, or whether it was you took a bigger one and cut it and made it into 2 smaller ones. So thank you for answering that. So please explain why you feel that community planning is wrong and that this should be permitted and not have to go by a zoning bylaw from 4 to 6 units. I guess that's your challenge. And I guess
yeah, we think it's
these are all they're rented out. They're all occupied.
Yes, they are. And there is a lot of apartment buildings in the area as well. Just across the street, there is big apartment dwelling, and there is a lot of high density buildings in the neighborhood. And it was there for years. There was no complaints over 20 years plus. We think it's really minor. There is no change to existing building. The green space variance is really small, and we can clear basically most of the parking issues. So we think it's really minor in nature.
And these 2 additional units in the basement and garage, they're not, they're suitable units. I know in the old days when a unit had less than a certain number of square feet, it was identified as a variance. They're compliant units. They're proper 1-bedroom units. They're bachelor units. What are they?
They're basically 1-bedrooms.
Okay, and they're affordable units, I would take it.
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Stoyanovsky? There are no other speakers. So,
sorry, Chair.
Yep.
A question for the applicant. Sir, you've revised your site plan now to apparently address concerns from transportation because they were asking for a deferral. Did you have transportation review the revisions that you made to the site plan, or you're going by goodwill that you've done everything you can to satisfy them without them reviewing it?
I did send it by email to transportation, and I had confirmation from them that they would be satisfied, but unfortunately I don't have it in writing.
Okay, so it's goodwill at this point.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go out on a limb and recommend approval. I think once he cleans up the order to comply and satisfies transportation, they'll be providing housing for people, which is well needed.
Thank you.
And so subject to transportation conditions. And I guess that would be it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other conditions.
So they've got to satisfy transportation. If they don't, then, they don't get what they want.
Correct. Okay.
And
I
they'll
just
clean
wanted
up the
to,
order to comply.
I did want to add something to that, if I could. It is 16 minutes by bus to the Old Mill subway station, and I'm assuming that not everyone living there has a vehicle to park. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. Also, we actually provide required amount of parking. It's just one space is not inside the building, but outside the building. That's the only difference between requirement and proposal.
Okay, so is that
Well,
a
I'm prepared to
seconding that?
I'm
Okay.
prepared to second that. I'm prepared to
Okay.
second that motion based
Great.
on that, yes.
Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Stoyanovsky. Okay, our next application is item number 23. I believe that's a deferral. We didn't deal with this deferral at the outset because we went over to do number 27 right away. Planning is asking for a deferral of 46 Panorama Court for the applicant to submit a complete application. So we're going to ask Ms. Janice Robinson of the Goldberg Group whether the applicant agrees to a deferral, as we don't know. And I think in the additional material, we got some supporting material in the additional materials. Mrs. Robinson? Sorry? Is Janice Robinson on the line? We lost the room again? Okay. It's great when someone's speaking, they don't even know that we lost the room.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
I should have kept count. I think we're up to over 15 times. This is crazy. Okay, are we back? Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me again? This is over 15 times today this has happened. When someone's speaking, you don't even know about it, but at this point, I guess you clued on. So is Janice Robinson on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if you heard or if we were cut off already when I was stated that planning, this was on our deferral sheet as something to be deferred for the applicant to submit a complete application. So I had noted to ask the applicant if you agreed to a deferral on this. I know there's some additional materials that came with the additional materials.
Yes, and I would like to speak to that. With respect, I don't want this application deferred. This is an application for 7 new rental housing units, and planning staff had questions about the existing floor plans. It's an old building. The owner didn't have them. He had the architect prepare some existing floor plans, which showed what I had told them, that the new units are in the location of storage rooms and an old pool that has been closed. And we submitted them. And I'm not even sure why the old plans are relevant. The deferral that they're seeking, it's just a generic report that they wrote, says that there's incomplete or unclear minor variances or zoning reviews. The variances are perfectly clear. There's a zoning notice. And in my presentation, I will be able to answer every question that you have about this application.
Okay, so you're saying
7 new rental houses.
Yeah, but so basically you're saying the incomplete nature of the application, as they call it, is something that you just don't have. You're saying if you don't have the old plans, so if you don't have it, you don't have it. You'll never be able to have them. So you said you're
but it doesn't
to,
tell them.
Right.
But sir, it doesn't tell them anything about the proposal. I mean, they told me they weren't objecting to the proposal. It's just that they wanted to see those old floor plans, but they have the proposed new floor plans. They're in your packages. And I just don't understand why something like that they would arbitrarily say, well, defer it or refuse it, since we don't have those old floor plans, which show what I told them, that it's old storage rooms used for storage space and a pool that has been closed. And now in place of all of that space, there's going to be 7 new rental housing units, and associated with the new rental housing units, a new gym and indoor amenity area.
Okay. And
so 2 new indoor amenity areas.
And the old plans, how old is this building? Like 50-year-old building or more?
Yeah, it was built in 1972.
Okay, so they don't have the plans, but you don't have the plans. So you're not going to be able to manufacture, or you're saying you have everything you need to make this presentation for this proposal, and there's nothing that's missing because you have new plans, and it's the old basement storage areas and pool. So,
Well, the architect did make up something and sent it to them
Mhm.
actually, but they had already sent this deferral letter, and I don't even know why it
okay.
makes a difference anyway.
Okay, and certainly you don't want a 2 or 3 or 6 month deferral because this is to add 7 new affordable rental units. So the public interest is to
Absolutely.
not to have a deferral just for the sake of a deferral and for something that's not necessary. So you're going to make a presentation you propose, which will clarify everything that needs
I
to be
am.
known. Committee members, so we have to have a motion on the issue of the deferral request by community planning. The applicant is opposed and wishes to proceed. So can I have a motion on the deferral? I don't think there's any other speakers, are there? No. Okay. Members?
You need a motion to proceed?
Yes.
Can we just proceed?
I don't
Well,
know
we
if we
did-
need a motion for that.
I need a
Well,
motion.
we had a formal request in our memo for a deferral by community planning. So I believe if
I'll make-
the applicant wants to proceed, we should make a ruling on that motion before we proceed. Ms. Alderson?
I'll make
Thank
that
you.
motion to
Thank
proceed,
you.
yes.
Seconded by? Or will it be seconded? Ms. Ruddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, Ms. Robinson, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, committee members. This is a proposal for 7 new residential rental units in an existing apartment building that has 288 units built in 1972. 6 of the units are in what's considered to be the basement, but they're all walkouts because of the sloping grade down to the ravine. And so they're all walkouts. And the other unit is on the ground floor. And associated with that, if you could show that's the ground floor, and you can see the one unit is beside the commercial space. And then the next floor plan is the basement going the other way. There it is. So that shows the other one. That one there shows the 6 other units plus the multi-purpose room and the new fitness room. So there is a variance in relation to the number of square meters of lot area per unit. And that's a standard that's applied across three buildings. And in this case, there's 52.8 square meters of lot area per unit. It's kind of a technical
Yeah,
variance.
what's that in square feet?
52.8 square meters
Yeah.
is, I'll do the conversion. $52.8.
173, I think.
Okay. And the 67 that's required, this is the average.
I'm getting 568 square
Yeah.
feet is what I'm getting.
Yeah. So certainly,
560.
the size of a Toronto 2-bedroom apartment by today's standards, maybe not 2, but certainly reasonably
So
sized.
that's not the size of the units. That's the amount of land area per unit, actually. It's not the size of the units.
Land area? That's weird. That's
Yes, the zoning standard that's being varied,
okay. I
like
don't think
the
I've ever
first
seen that.
variance,
Okay.
is the number of square meters of lot area. So just to let you know the size of the units, and I can give you that
Yes.
in square footages. There's a 1-bedroom that's 593 square feet. There's a 2-bedroom that's 927 square feet.
Okay.
There's a 3-bedroom plus den
Wow.
that's 1,178 square feet. A 3-bedroom that's 1,270 square feet. A 1-bedroom plus den that's 829 square feet.
Okay.
And a 1-bedroom that's 550 square feet. And for some reason this
Yes,
chart-
St. Omar, these are well in excess of any standard. I'm surprised that whoever's doing this instead of doing 7 units isn't doing 15 or 20 in the same square footage.
Exactly.
So these are generous sized units by any standard. Okay.
So the second variance is with respect to where there's a 45-degree bend in the building, and there's units facing east, and then there's the other wall that's at 45 degrees to it. That's where the, it's a facing wall, but it's where the gym is. So that particular variance is really intended to prevent window to window close by for residential units, but it's the gym that is on the other side. So there isn't going to be a privacy issue there. And planning didn't have a concern about that one at all. And then, of course, the third variance is with respect to the, it's a technical variance. It's saying that the buildings are below, or the units are below established grade. But because of the sloping grade, they all have walkouts. So they aren't really below, they're below the measured established grade, but not below the physical established grade. And in this case, there's no concerns or conditions from ravine natural features, urban forestry. The TRC permit has been issued for this. This entire project is only interior alterations to create these units. There'll be no impact on the height, massing, scale of the building, no impact on the streetscape or on the ravine that's behind it. So in my opinion, it's a significant investment that's very desirable for this area. It will provide 7 new rental units, new indoor amenity space, and it should be something that is prioritized by this city where there really is a shortage of housing.
Absolutely.
So I submit that these variances are minor in nature and meet the 4 tests, and request that committee approve the application.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. You know, you watch the news and you talk about all this affordability crisis, and there's no supply, there's no supply, there's no supply. I realize this is not a sale type thing. This is not new units for purchase, but it does provide badly needed rental affordable housing. And these are generously sized units. So that's just my comment. Committee members, any questions for Mrs. Robinson, or someone's ready for a motion?
I have 2 questions, if I may.
Me too. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Robinson. So first, I'm just confirming that all the units are above ground. You've got full windows. They're all walkout. I think you've already said that, but I'm just confirming that all of the units are like that?
Yes, I confirm that. That's correct.
My other question is, how many, if any, are being located next to the transformer room?
There is one next to the transformer, and there was a question about that from planning. And we gave them a letter talking about how the hydro vault is encased in concrete, has a fire rating. And in fact, the entire building right now is over the top of the hydro vault. And there's units above it now.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from a different perspective as a former hydro commissioner, just with regards to EMFs. And will you be disclosing in your rental agreement that location, that unit is located next to a transformer room?
That can be done. It's, I think it's pretty obvious, but, and there's a unit above it, but that can be done.
Understood. Just question to staff then, is that a condition we can impose?
Well, we have no way of enforcing that.
Well, Barb, to tell you, like, you know, when we approve undersized parking units, we impose a condition that it's disclosed to the purchasers of the condo that the units are undersized. How is this different?
But usually the city's involved in the condo registration, and they can ensure that those comments are there in the declarations. In this case, it's an existing building and it's rental. So there's no one overseeing rental agreements that are signed.
Fair enough. I just put that out there as a comment to be fair to whoever's renting that unit.
Are you finished, Stan? So I have a comment regarding the affordability of these units. Can you just give us an example of what these units will rent for? You don't have to go through the entire list, but just give me a sample. And also, there are no renderings in your proposal. It's just all floor plan.
So I don't have the
How's she
answer
supposed to know?
as to what the rental rates will be because I'm the agent
Ballpark,
representing.
just ballpark.
She's a
I,
planning consultant. She's going to guess. What
I'm a,
relevance is it? It'll go for the market with the market. You could ask her maybe to find out what the existing rents are in the building, the other
Well,
235 units.
we were talking about the lack of affordability
Well,
in the city in terms of, and I was just curious as to what they might rent for. That's all.
okay. I think by affordable, we mean that it's a basement apartment. It's in the lower level of a, it's not the Four Seasons. So I think we know that it's not it's a fill-in apartment. She's going to guess. If she's going to tell you it's going to be $800 a month or $2,100
I just
a
thought
month,
she
and
might
it turns out it's different, what are we going to do? Are we going to take away their approval? It's just completely
Would
irrelevant.
you like me to withdraw the question? I can withdraw the
It's
question.
okay. I want to finish, let's stick with the, what we have.
what I will say, the rental units in this building are relatively affordable. I mean, it's an affordable location. It's not a downtown location. It's an affordable location, but they're rental units. So they're gonna add to the housing stock of rental units. And that was my point, that's something that's needed in this city.
Thank you for that.
When they fill in a basement or former laundry room or storage room areas, I think we can take notice of the fact that they're not going to be higher than the other units above ground. Okay, good. I'm about to leave. Have my wife call in and tell me she's in an ambulance again.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
Jesus.
Hey, Michael.
Okay.
It's like magic.
You can
You've
ask whatever
reappeared.
questions you want. I'm just trying to say, like, let's stick to the let's stick to what's before us. If they try to charge $4,000 for those units, God bless them. But I don't think that's going to happen. Their basement, former storage rooms, former laundry rooms. We've seen a lot of this, and I don't think you have to ask how much the rent's going to be to establish their affordable units. Okay, so were we in the middle of I think Stan, you had made a motion, or did anyone?
No,
make a
I
motion
haven't,
yet?
but I can if you like. I would like to move approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for that? Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? We have your approval unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Robinson, and thank you, members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated.
Okay, our next application is item number 24.
Sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair, we're gonna go to item number 32.
32?
Yep.
Okay. Item number 32 is 8 Treeview Drive. This matter was deferred from the July 29, 2021 hearing, back when the weather was nice and warm.
Technology worked.
Okay. This is an application to construct a detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 8 variances. We have minutes from the previous hearing. It was deferred in order to make revisions. We have a cover letter, 3 conditions from transportation, urban forestry looking for condition number 1, and that's all we have. And the speaker for this application is Matthew Panzik. And that's it. Just one speaker, the agent, the owner.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Sir.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thanks for your flexibility. We have a COVID scare in the house, so we all got to go get tested at 5 p.m. at St. Joe's. So I'll keep it brief, just the background.
Yep.
Yep, thank you. So our property, we had initially approached the committee and planning with, I guess, an addition to the side and to the top of our home. Planning had concerns despite having neighbor support. We wanted to be good citizens, so we went ahead and made the changes that planning requested, which translated into the home becoming a new build. So we've since submitted revised plans. Planning has no further objections. So again, I don't want to prolong the commentary, but like we believe we have a reasonable proposal in front of you, and we hope for your support.
Okay, thank you, sir. So you're okay with the proposed transportation conditions? You've seen those?
Yep, the transportation report requested just an updated drawing. We submitted it a few days after the request. We're just waiting to hear back, but we don't see anything in there that is
Okay,
of
so
concern to us.
you're okay with those, and you're also okay with
I am.
the urban forestry condition number 1?
Yep, it's there are no city trees.
Okay, so let's
within.
see if committee members have any questions, and so you can go off and get tested. Any questions for the owner, or is someone ready to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept this application. I find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the 4 test.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Palmer, your hand up went first. All in favor?
Just a
Unanimous.
forestry condition.
Yeah, subject
Forestry condition
forestry and the transportation
and transportation conditions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Panzik.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you kindly.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck with the technology. Take care.
Okay, so we're back
Chair,
to
for item 24, I think this is an automatic deferral because they've submitted revised plans, but the variances are higher than what went out in the notice.
Okay, and I also had a note that transportation was looking for a deferral as well on this.
Yes.
So, okay, so that's 34 OMAGH. The speaker is Charles Chan Wei.
Correct.
Hello, sir. So we're hearing how this you're going to have to defer because for a notice issue.
Yes, it was a technical issue from the examiner. And when I did the waiver, the zoning waiver, I didn't realize that the zoning examiner didn't change and update the number that I gave him
Okay.
for the garage slab height.
Okay, and have you also seen there was a memo from traffic planning saying that they've noticed that the elevations provided in site plan varies with cross-section and related elevation views of the proposed plans. The elevations are confusing and direction of slope seems incorrect. Therefore, please defer this application until the applicant provides proper plans. So you can use and cross-sections. So you can also hopefully deal with the deferral time to resolve that issue.
So I've actually emailed Farhad on November 11th, requesting to see how he wanted me to do this.
Yes.
And on Saturday, this Saturday that just went by, he actually did explain to me how to do the drawings, which was completely different from what I first provided. So I did the longitudinal profile, which I provided him over the weekend. He replied to me saying that the drawings looked correct.
Anyway, you can sort that out at the same time that you're dealing with the issue that the Secretary Treasurer just with the improper notice. So you'll have that extra time to deal with transportation and resolve this before you come back on. Okay.
Correct.
And also, I noticed there is a while you're at it, there was one opposition letter from one of the neighbors down the street. So it's like they're across the street. All I'm saying is, if we're going to defer, you can deal with these other issues at the same time. So, okay.
Yeah. I just want to say that I did email the owner on 21, but I haven't heard anything back from them.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Annalisa also uploaded the email that I am referring to, and it has all the drawings and the samples that she was concerned on those on that email.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So, committee members, we need to defer this for proper notification.
Happy to make a motion for deferral.
Thank you, Ms. Alderson. Thank you, Ms. Reddick, for seconding that. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. So 24 is gone. We're down to 25 then. 71 Redgrave Drive. It's an application. We have, first of all, the applicant revision highlighted sheet showing changes to the bylaw. There are 2 variances, both of which have been reduced. We also have the revised plans and revised zoning waiver to go along with that, and we have nothing else whatsoever. That's all we have. We do have in the additional materials 71 Grovedale wrote in, opposed. They must be behind. I don't know where 71 Grovedale is. Did anyone else see that in the additional materials? in any case.
It refers to 71 Grovedale, which is not part of this file. I found that confusing.
Maybe it's something from another application, Madam Secretary Treasurer? Anyway. So we have nothing other than the 2 revisions. Both variances have been reduced. And the applicant on this is Edouard Begage, who is the agent. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you? Good afternoon, all of you guys.
Yes, sir. We have the application here, very straightforward. 2 variances, you reduce both of them. Is there anything else you'd like to advise the committee members, or can I just see if they have any questions for you?
No, if they have any questions, I have nothing to say.
Okay, so the applicant is reduced to 2 variances. We have nothing else from any other department.
Forestry.
I don't have forestry on this.
There is no trees on the back. I think so.
Forestry, yeah, number 2. Urban forestry condition number 2. I had it written on the other application. There is a forestry condition, correct? Okay. Any questions for the applicant, agent, or someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Kumark.
I'm willing to give it a go. I find the application to be minor and meeting the 4th test. I would therefore like to move approval subject to forestry condition 2.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconded by Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Begay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Okay, our next application, item number 26 rather, 66 Kane Avenue. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 undersized lots, and on the site of each to be redeveloped as the side of a pair of semi-detached dwellings requiring variances to the zoning bylaw, as set out in applications B and C. So we have a revision page here. They've revised to lower the rear platform. So variances 8 and 9 in both the 2 applications have been revised to that effect to reduce variances 8 and 9. We have our draft our plan. We have the plans for both sides. We have revised zoning notices. We have the engineering construction services, a presentation from the agent. Planning has weighed in with a condition of approval. In the event of an approval, it should be tied to the architectural plans as it relates to the building length. And Heritage has advised that they, I don't believe they have any concerns. Oh, there's some archaeological, hold on. Heritage is looking to consult the archaeological, so there's four conditions of approval. And that's basically, I believe, all we have.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Evangelista.
Good afternoon. How are you, Mr. Chair, members? Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 66 Kane. Do you require a presentation?
I see we do have someone here in opposition from 56, or at least maybe they're in support. I don't know. I don't know if you want to just do a brief planning. Planning, I guess, is you're okay with the planning condition? I guess planning is okay with this.
Yeah, I've worked. I will say so. I did do a research. An outreach to the area neighbors. If you'll refer to the submission that I made. And I outlined all the variances because at times, it's illegible, just to give them some clarity to the variances. I worked very closely with planning. They had concerns with the deck. They wanted them separated at the back, which we did. They wanted our first floor elevation brought down, which we did. However, if you will refer to photos in my submission, you'll see that this is very characteristic in this neighborhood. This neighborhood is an area where 3-story, 11-meter height is permitted. And we don't have any variances to that. We do have a main wall height, as you can also see from the photos and from the survey. You'll see that the lands are very undulating. You know, there's peaks and valleys. So with that said, the FSI that we have, because we brought the basement out we had to bring the basement out, you know, according to the topography of the land, the basement's closer to the established grade. Therefore, the basement is included in the FSI. However, if we remove that basement, we do have a, you know, variance, an FSI between 0.88 and 0.90 because they have included a little landing behind the garage. When you come, you know, you enter the house from the garage, there's a landing to take you into the house. So that's included also in the FSI. So the variances that we're asking for the side yard setbacks, we do have a main wall height variance, and it is a flat roof home, and you'll see that it's taken to the top of the parapet, and that's what we have. However, as you know, planning staff, they are okay with it. They had the concerns with that first floor elevation, which we brought down the balconies. We did make smaller. And I conclude that this is very characteristic to the neighborhood. I have read through all the conditions, and we're in agreement to the conditions. Planning also just, you know, want to make sure that we do build the home in compliance with the length, and that's why they've asked to tie the site plan, which we are also in agreement to. Okay, so
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
hello?
Hello?
Hi, I lost you?
Yeah, just
Okay,
Adam is
just timed out a
very
bit.
quick. He runs over and we're back on within like 30 seconds. He's really quick, but we've been down for about 20 seconds.
Okay,
Or so.
so
But
did you get
the
that
members have heard. The members continue to hear you. Correct?
Okay,
Awesome.
right,
Just continue,
okay.
please, Ida.
Okay, I
So
can
you're
then
okay,
address
you're
any
okay with the
questions before
conditions,
that.
the staff condition, they explain in their report how it would be 0.9 in the event because the basement counts, and they're asking for you're okay with that condition and with the urban forestry 1 and 3? Those are the two conditions,
We are in
correct?
that.
Yeah.
We're okay with urban forestry, with the archaeological,
Yes.
engineering, and tying the site plan.
Okay, so let's hear from the neighbor at 56 and see what their concern are. I guess they're several houses away. There isn't some kind of strange situation where it's next door. So do we have the neighbor at 56, Mr. Segro, on the line? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's about 5 houses away. Do we have Dominic Scrow on the line? Okay. Ms. Evangelista, while we're waiting, you speak to the adjacent neighbors, or we haven't have any letters? I see that properties across the street have been severed. You can see by the lot patterning. Right across the street, you have 71A and 71.
Yeah, this is very consistent with this neighborhood. It's, you know, it's a lot of regeneration is happening, reinvestment is happening in this neighborhood. And I, like I said, I did talk to the neighbors at 70 Kane, 70 Kane, which is right next door.
Yes.
And 19 Watt, which is right behind. And she is Mrs. Colna. She's very supportive of what we're proposing, considering what's there right now.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Dominic is now on the line.
He's on the line?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Scrow. 56 Kane. I don't know if you were on the line listening to the agent's presentation, but you're registered to speak on this application. So we would like to know if you have any concerns or if you have support, what your position is on this. I know that you're about 5 houses away.
Yes, no, I do not have any objections to the proposed development. My only question is, or two questions. One, is the fire hydrant in front of the property being moved? And two, are we losing any more parking spots on the street?
Okay, so those are your two questions for the agent.
Yes, or whomever.
Okay. Would you like to add anything? Because once you finish, you'll respond. It's not a back and forth dialogue. So you can make some submissions.
that's
If that's all you want to know. We'll go back to Mrs. Evangelista. Okay, thank you, sir. But other than that, you don't have any concerns?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mrs. Evangelista?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is there an additional curb cut? They're going to lose any street parking?
The fire hydrant is in a position, the two driveways go around the fire hydrant and also around the city tree. And so that will not be moved. And no, it will not take away street parking. They'll have ample space within the garage and on the driveway.
And we have, conditions from planning, heritage, and urban forestry, as well as engineering construction services. Mr. Komarek?
If no one else seems to want to, I'll be glad to.
Mr. Taylor's not here today.
Okay. I would like to recommend approval. I believe it does meet the 4 tests. Subject to, and here we go. So subject to the following conditions: forestry condition 1 and 3, the usual transportation and development conditions. Heritage conditions, I believe they're laid out as 1, 2, and 3. And also that it be subject to being substantially in accordance with the site plan of October 19th, 2021, relating to building.
Thank you, Mr. Komarek.
Oh, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, we have a seconder for that? Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mrs. Evangelista.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
And don't go away, as it turns out, because we already did number 27. You're the next applicant as well. Item number 28, 1031 Weston Road, to construct a 3-story rear addition, a 3-story addition above the existing building. The altered building will consist of a total of 8 residential units and 2 retail units. And on this application, we have a cover letter, 3 different supporting letters, supporting materials, and we have a couple of planning memos. Planning is recommending in their memo November the 4th that the application be refused. There was a report similarly back in June. Oh yeah, this is a matter of the one that was, this is a deferral from June 15th, 2017. This is over almost 4.5 years old. It's almost its 5th birthday. If it was a child, it would almost be going to school. And we also have transportation memos as well. Actually, transportation was looking for a deferral back in 2017, and they're still looking for a deferral. And planning was looking for a refusal in 2017, and they're still looking for a refusal. There's a note here that it's premature as the Mount Dennis Planning and Policy Framework study is due for completion at the end of 2021, and this site will be subject to the updated planning framework. So there is that comment as well. So having said that, Mrs. Evangelista, the floor is yours. We also have 2 other speakers registered after you. the neighbors at 1012 and 1029 Weston.
So having said all of that, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, what's happened the last
we have
5
to,
years?
we have to, well, what happened is we submitted revised drawings and a zoning notice. However, unfortunately, the incorrect zoning notice and plans were captured. And that's what was sent out to the area residents. So I have to defer because it is incorrect. And I had a zoning examiner take a look at it. There is a new zoning examiner that will be reviewing the file. And as you know, it is through the interpretation of each zoning examiner. And what you have in front of you right now doesn't reflect what we are proposing. So,
Okay, how did we just discover that? How did you just figure that out, or what did I miss?
Well, we were reviewing, I literally just received the notice. But while we were reviewing the applications, we noticed that, and then going back through the emails, we noticed that what was sent in to be reheard, because it was deferred, I had to reach out to the neighborhood, which I did. And that's when we discovered that everything, what was sent out was incorrect. And, you know, it's to no fault of anyone, because there have been so many changes back and forth. It's very unfortunate it's happened this way. And I know planning wants us to, you know, get that Mount Dennis study out first, which I don't quite agree with, but.
So Mrs. Vengel, you just realized this very second, because we started to make your submissions, and then, so did you just realize this very second that what was submitted is incorrect?
No, I reached out to, I notified staff. I notified staff to let them know, I think it was last week, to let them know that the incorrect, and then the application technician was away, so then I reached out to Phil and to Barb yesterday.
Okay, so you're saying we're gonna have to defer this.
Yeah.
So we don't have to hear from the other neighbors, because
With-
what's
with
before us is not
correct.
correct. Okay, Ms. Bartoszek?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You mentioned the addresses of the opposite, or those that wanted to speak, and
Yes.
they were who?
1012 Weston and 1029 Weston.
Okay.
I don't know, so I don't know if they're on the line or whatever, but whether we even have to, if it's incorrect and we have to defer for proper notice. So committee members can have a motion to defer for, there's a notice issue.
Now, do you also want them to consult further with transportation, just to clear that up in your deferral motion?
I guess if there's a confusion, I guess Mrs. Evangelist can use her time to just make sure that everything else is
Yeah, most definitely.
Right.
I've already reached out to, and transportation did have the correct plans in place. They did have all the correct information in place. But then when they actually did their review, they based their review on the old transportation report and the old plans.
So you're saying the negative planning report by Mr. Bulger is perhaps based on incorrect plans, so perhaps you can revisit that also.
Oh, most definitely. Because if you review their memorandum, you'll see that they make reference to 2017.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So committee members, we have a motion to defer item number 28? Mr. Morik. Thank you. Seconder. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred. We'll see you back here, Mrs. Evangelista.
Hopefully sooner rather than later. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Our next application is item 29. It's 27 Meadowbank Road. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have 3 variances. We have a letter from the agent. To put it back on the agenda. Yeah, this was deferred from the March. We're doing all deferrals for the rest of the afternoon. March 9, 2021, this matter is deferred. It's now back on. All we have is supporting materials and the materials from the previous hearing, and we have Urban Forestry requesting conditions 2 and 3 for a new detached garage. The speaker on this application is Peter Giordano. Welcome back. You were, I believe,
Hi,
our
Mr.
first,
Chair,
you were on application number 1 back a long time ago. Seems that.
I was. I've been experiencing all your technical trials.
Awesome. Welcome back. Maybe you could have kept track of how many times we lost the room. I could have hired you to keep track. Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Giordano, this application was back here in March. It was deferred. You're back. It has to be put back on the agenda. You have supporting materials and the previous materials. And all you seem to have here is Urban Forestry 2 and 3. So perhaps you can let us know what happened since this matter was the last deferred. Have there been any changes?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So yeah, back in March of this year, we chose to defer our application when we heard from the planner that they had concerns. After working closely with planning, we're back today with a revised proposal. Planning, forestry, transportation, staff reports now express no concerns. Can I ask the moderator to pull up my slide number 6, please, from my presentation material? And I'll jump into it while that's displaying on the screen. So on slide number 6, you'll see that we're showing the relationship between the proposed house footprint. It's highlighted in blue, and the.
There we go.
Oh, we lost the room again.
I think I'm going down.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It might be easier.
Then if you lose the room, all the 5 of us are there.
Yeah. So they could hear him, but we could.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. I'm looking for slide numbers. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we just to let you know, the room has been out for the last 20 seconds again. I'm seeing if Paul can get it down to 15. Maybe he has to sit closer. He has to keep running over. But I guess the other members have heard what you're saying in terms of the existing house in blue and the existing driveway in gray.
There was the existing house in blue, and the new proposed house is dashed in red lines.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're showing that the proposal is set back further than the existing house. So the next slide, number 7, please. So on this slide, today we're requesting your consideration on 3 variances. The first is floor space index. It's allowed, permitted is 0.45. We're proposing a slight increase to 0.48. Item number 2, as we had mentioned earlier, is the front yard setback, where 14.82 is required, as you'll see on the diagram. 12.93 is proposed. Now, the proposed house is set back almost a meter further than the current home. You'll also notice that the front wall of the house is staggered. With the entry feature furthest forward, that's where the setback variance is taken to. The main front wall of the house is set back an additional 0.36 meters, and then the garage wall, again, 0.42 meters further back. The green lines on the slide indicate the zoning as right setback lines. On this slide, you'll also see that what we're requesting today is a total gross floor area, front yard setback, and the front porch. So the front porch is also related to item number 2. The front porch canopy projects 3.72 meters, which in fact is measured from the front yard setback line. So the green line near the front of the house, that's where the projection is measured to. The porch canopy is allowed to project 2.5 meters. It actually only projects 1.83, but the measuring point is from the front yard setback line. So we worked diligently with planning staff to reduce the building area and the building length to alleviate their concerns. I'll conclude my presentation by saying we believe the merit of our proposals are acceptable and appropriate for the neighborhood, past the 4 tests required by section 45.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Giordano. Any questions for the agent, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'll move for approval. Variances requested are minor in nature and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. And that's subject to forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconder for that is Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Giordano. See you next time.
Amazing, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have items 30 and 31 and 33 because we've already done 32. So 3 more applications. Let's do it. Want to do it without a break, and let's just get it done. That's the consensus. Okay. Item 30, 92 North Drive. This is deferred from the August 12th, 2021 hearing. It's a detached dwelling with an attached garage and a ancillary structure being a shed with 12 variances. This matter was deferred. We have minutes. We have a lot of stuff here. Survey, we have existing site plan, we have the plans, we have an explanation, like-for-like proposal for the TRCA. That's from the applicant, I believe, Chris McCormick. We have a covering letter, email correspondence, the request to put it back on the agenda for when it was last here, the geotechnical review, photos. We have forestry, ravines and natural forest protection email, planning and TRCA, as well as all the materials from the previous hearing. Okay, and community planning is requesting 5 conditions of approval in the event of an approval. And we have also memos from TRCA and, as I said, ravines and forestry, which is looking for they're looking for a refusal, actually. And the speaker on this application is Christopher McCormick on behalf of the applicant, as well as neighbors at 93 Velcrest and 7 Courtsfield Crescent. Mr. McCormick, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the overview on the file. We've had about a year now to build it. I'm sorry for how much paperwork is there. And to take advantage of the 5 minutes that I have to speak to you, I'd like to just focus on where I think there may be a benefit in providing some explanations.
Right, and maybe also what happened since last time. It looks like you had 12 variances. You still have 12 variances. So has there maybe just why you were deferred and what's happened since August?
Thank you for the question. We asked for the variance because we started on this project about a year ago and took the initiative to speak to the various groups that would be having reports prepared for whatever application we would be presenting. And when we were getting ready for the hearing in August, it became obvious to us that there was a stumbling block with the TRCA and the ravine and a need for a better understanding of the geotechnical conditions that affected the slope. And the geotechnical report took about 6 weeks to prepare, and then it took 2 or 3 weeks for different groups to review it. And we would not be able to have had the report back from planning and from zoning and from TRCA within that time. So we asked for it to be put back.
Yeah.
And because you guys are so busy, it's taken until now.
So it looks like TRCA is still looking for either a deferral or refusal in their November 9th memo.
Yeah, and if
And I
you,
guess that's with respect to this rear shed. It has nothing to do with the home itself, right?
It has, as I understand, it has nothing to do with the home because I've read through the planning report and they seem to be satisfied with the work that we've done on all these variances.
Right.
To give you an oversight, if you're not as familiar with material, there is an existing house on the site that was built in the 1930s, and there's a very mature landscape that's grown up around it, which is what's attractive about this site. It's 44 meters by 119. About a third of it is in the ravine. And the ravine begins about 190 feet north of the south border. And when we started on this project, we understood that there were going to be difficulties with setbacks and heights and so forth, and they were all very much about site conditions. And we've had a very good understanding from planning and from zoning about that, but they still need to present them to you as variances. And you'll see that most of the variances concern that. Where we've had a couple of stumbling blocks, one was with urban forestry, because of the 128 trees on this property, which we've documented with our arborist, there are 9 to be removed. 2 of them are dead, 3 of them are in decline. And I think there are only 2 that are healthy that we're asking to have moved. And that meant that 3 of the trees are in the front and they're in decline. 2 of them are at 30% and one's at 60%. And that would be to get a second entry off the street. It's not a very busy street, but people drive very quickly. And the applicant has a young family, 3 girls under 10. And having a second entry is not unusual for the properties. There are 4 properties immediately adjacent to this that have 2 entries from the street, and transportation is in support. But it means that there are 3 trees that are close to and likely to be injured if we were to put the second entry in. And the arborist that we have on the file has pointed out that they're already old, and we would do better to renew this by building new tree, putting in new trees. So that's one consideration that still stands. And the other one concerns the shed, which the TRCA has been the only group that we've been working with in the last year who really hasn't changed their position on it, because they have a policy of not wanting to see construction within 10 meters of the ravine. And we used the geotechnical report that was prepared at great length by Haddad to determine that there is no risk in rebuilding the shed in the location where it is right now, either for the shed or for the ravine. And the TRC has actually accepted that, but they still have the policy of not wanting it to be built there. And in the report, which I would draw your attention to, that is most of interest, it would be the latest submission that I made, which had photographs of the location of the site and also the overlap that you kindly put up on the screen of the existing and the proposed. And it's really come down to 2 things left with TRCA. One is like for like, and we've proposed to take out a large deck, which would reduce 2 structures to 1 structure at 50% of the footprint. And we think that's like for like and should be considered as that. And the second is that there is no risk with the proposal that we're making. We've already done all the architecture and engineering and had it reviewed. And there's a report that's been submitted by Haddad, which supports the proposal as it's been made for the geotechnical study that they did on the foundations that were proposed. I did not introduce this application properly by saying to you that we have a letter of support from the neighbor to the west and across the ravine to the south. And we've got a current discussion with the architect for the developer for the property to the east. This is an example of a family that wants to build a new home and raise their children, and they have a large property, and having the shed where it is gives them an opportunity in the middle of the property to be able to use as a warming hut for their skating or as a place to change for tennis, and as basically a convenience for how they would like to use their land.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. McCormick at this time? We have 2 neighbors to hear from. No? Okay. Justin Bernard at 93 Vailcrest Drive is the next speaker.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, and thank you for your time. My name is Justin Bernhard, and my family lives at 93 Vailcrest Drive.
Yeah, you're on the other side of the
located to
ravine,
the
it looks
south.
like, right? You're the other side of the ravine?
Yes.
Yeah. Right behind.
Yes,
Yep.
and we have to say that it is a beautiful neighborhood and a beautiful ravine, and we appreciate all its character, and overall we support the development of the home if approved by the committee. In regards to variances number 10 and 11, the circular driveway, we do think that it is good because it will be safer because unfortunately North Drive does have some speeding problems. We also note the applicant's use of non-porous materials in the front, and we do like these environmentally friendly designs as it is a very important area. And we would hope that the applicant understands that we all have the responsibility to maintain the future viability of Toronto's ravines and tree canopy. Thank you very much.
Okay, so are you you're okay with the shed? You mentioned you're okay with the house, you're okay with the circular driveway. What about the shed?
So the warming shed, I think it's a great idea. This property is large, already has a tennis court. It's better to utilize something that is not instead of it just being not used.
Right, but it's interesting you didn't first mention because that seems to be, at least from my looks like TRCA is giving them a hard time for that because their absolute restriction in theory of what they agree to. But you, as the most directly affected party by that hut, is okay with that, correct?
Yeah, I would prefer the TRCA to allow the deck to remain. Not remove things and then also give them the shed with their skating change rooms there. But because, when you start removing a deck, it could erode the slope, but I will let the committee and the TRCA decide that.
That seems like they've resolved that themselves, so we're not going to comment on that. The applicant has made his own, dealt with them. But the issue is, I just wanted to know your opinion on this shed. And you're not affected by the extra 2 meters in height, as opposed to
no.
The height. So there's the existence of the shed in the top of bank or within the protected area, and then there's the issue about the variance on the height of that warming shed. So you're okay with both?
Yes.
The fact that it's there and the fact that it's not too high or higher than is permitted. Okay, thank you. Good neighbor. Any questions for Mr. Bernard before we move on?
The room again.
We lost the room again. Okay. It's not right. Yeah.
This has been like 30
Why is it
times
happening?
for sure.
Yeah, like.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
A shed that nobody uses and it falls into disrepair and it could affect the slope stability of the future.
Okay, we've just been out for the last, at least a room, but you guys have heard your last 20 seconds. We've been gone again. So he was explaining he's okay with the shed and he's okay with the height of the shed, right?
I'm okay with the shed. I'm okay with the height of the shed.
Okay. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Bernard before? I think that's exactly when I cut out when I asked if there are any questions. So maybe you asked him a question, he answered it, and I don't know. Any further questions? Okay, so let's go back. There's another speaker, Nancy Roper at 7 Courtsfield Crescent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's great. My name is Nancy Roper, and I live at number 7 Courtsfield Crescent, which is 4 doors away from 92 North Drive. I've lived here for 54 years and counting. Initially, I registered to attend today because I wanted to hear the discussion and be able to speak if need arise. However, as it turns out, I have no objection to the proposal, and I actually approve of some of the choices made. However, I'd like to make the following comments. This property is located in a beautiful area in our community near James Gardens that is zoned for lovely, large, and unique homes on estate-sized lots with wonderful tree canopy. This area is zoned to maintain this character. It's important to me that that zoning is followed to ensure this lovely neighborhood is maintained. Because the property is owned by a numbered company, I was concerned that it may be a developer looking to do a maximum build and then flip the house, rather than a family building a home for their own use. However, it's been mentioned by the architect, and as it was written in the arborist report, the home is apparently, in fact, for the long-term use and enjoyment of the family that's building it, which makes me happy. In reading the documents, I'm pleasantly surprised by the work the homeowners have done to build a home that fits their family's needs while keeping the character of the property, and in particular, retaining as many trees as possible. The architect, the arborist, and the engineers have explained the variances that they require and the build techniques that will be used to protect the ravine. I'm particularly pleased that the family is keeping the beautiful rock walls that face the street. I would also like to offer my support for the family's request for a circular driveway, because they're right that the cars zoom along North Drive at outrageous speeds. And I agree with them that coming out from their property forwards rather than backing out will be much safer. I suspect you're also going to ask me about the skating hut, which I had written about, but I see that the family has done a lot of work to keep that as close to the variances as possible and to ensure that it's not going to fall down the slope at the back. And I commend them for that work. And because the property is so deep, I think they raise a good point that having a place to change your skates, your zip to the bathroom right nearby the skating rink is far superior to people walking all the way up and trudging with their dirty skate blades into the house. I look forward to meeting this new family and welcoming them to our community.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Roper. Very nice of you to weigh in. Usually people just weigh in that are opposed to applications if you happen to watch any of the Committee of Adjustment proceedings. So it's nice to see two neighbors stepping forward in support and staying on the line to make that deposition. So thank you. I assume there's no questions for the two neighbors. And Mr. McCormick, I don't know if there's any need to rebut since they're both in support. So you're okay with the proposed 5 planning conditions, I take it? And
yes.
Okay. Okay, committee members, any follow-up questions for Mr. McCormick, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Yeah, Neil Palmer.
Okay.
Mr. McCormick, just the height on the ancillary structure, really, that's the only variance that you need for that. It's not because of the location. Location is, well, the issue with the location is more a TRCA issue. So the height has to do with the fact that it's a raised structure. It's raised off the ground. Is that right?
Yes, I would never treat a variance lightly, but in this situation, it really is not a height that matters to any of the neighbors. There's 190 feet of property to the south before you even get to the south property line. The reason why it's higher is we put the shed up on 4 helical piles so that it would have the absolute smallest environmental footprint. It means that rain and snow and even animals can run underneath it. And that raises its height. It would be very easy just to sit it down on the ground and meet the height restriction. We just think this is a better design solution.
Okay.
Okay, so if we were to give approval to this, and you can't get it in that exact location because of TRCA issues, you could move it somewhere else on the property without requiring a TRCA permit, I guess. Is that correct?
Am I answering you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the proposal to put it in this place is because immediately to the north are very mature evergreen trees, and I sent a photograph of it, and I included my dog
next to it. Yeah.
That's for scale. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not for sale. It's for scale.
For scale, yeah. It's a ginormous tree. So
Right.
what's
So
the
we
position?
could
I don't
vary-
think we're not purporting to move this shed. The application is to keep the shed where it is.
Yes, please, because we could take those trees down as of right and move it back to where the trees are, which is what the TRCA suggested to us. And they also said we could put it in the middle of the open space, but then you would not get a view of the ravine from the house. This is such a logical place. Where it says dog for sale, dog for scale, the shed would be behind those trees. It is behind those trees, and you can see it to the right of that. And you can see the top picture that's on your screen where the existing shed is. The new shed would be no further to the south, no further closer to the ravine than it currently is. And it's almost flat where it is. It's just, you have to go through the geotechnical studies to show where the actual top of slope is.
Okay, so if we give approval to that, you're still going to need a TRCA permit for the location you're proposing, right?
Unfortunately, they have in this, I mean, I have huge respect for what the TRCA does, but I'm really caught in a certain bureaucracy right now because they admitted to me before we even did the geotechnical study that they did not think the slope was at risk. It was just their policy, and they're concerned about this setting a precedent for others. But others would have to have a 40-foot by 44 meter by 119 meter site with a small shed and a deck that they don't want or don't need in order to make this kind of a proposal. I think it is a like for like. And I don't know how it's going to end up, but I really have to try my hardest as the architect to do what I think is best for the site and for the client's brief.
Yeah, I believe you said at
Okay.
the outset of your
That's fine, thank you.
presentation that TRCA, this was their policy and they couldn't approve it, so they expected, I guess, us to approve it, and then you'll deal with them as however the chips lie, but the first step is to get approval here for it to be in situ where it is, correct?
Yes, they've gone so far. They've gone so far as to describe this as home occupation. And I looked up in their glossary. It means you have to have a living space where you sleep overnight. I mean, it's not that. It's a small shed as a warming hut and a place for the girls to change.
Mr. Kumar?
Just to follow up on the shed, there's no plumbing involved in that shed, I'm assuming.
No, there is. There is a toilet. There's a toilet and a sink. There's no shower.
It's a warming
But
shed.
that's existing.
I guess there's heat in
Right,
there.
so
It's a
that's-
warming shed. There's
Okay,
heat,
but
there's
that's-
electricity, right?
those are
There's
existing
electricity.
lines. Okay. Anyway, my interest was more around the driveway and coming back to the issue of the circular driveway. And I think the site plan that you're providing, you've got turning radius at the house. You don't really need the circular driveway in order to come in and out. I think you're just doing the circular driveway more for aesthetics, but that's my opinion.
There's a grade change there from the street rising up to the existing level of the ground.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Right. And so we've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out, we're still going to get a proper engineer on this, but we've done all the studies to make sure that it can work. And if you look at the photograph of the street, there are these two beautiful stone walls. One's right
Oh,
at
I know,
the street.
I drove by there yesterday, so I saw it.
Yeah. So we're doing everything we can to keep the status quo and then insert the house. We started out working with the existing house, but it's so old that there's quite a big mold problem in the basement, and there's just so much work to do that it made more sense.
I get that, but you're flipping the garage from one side of the property to the other, and I think that's the real reason you want the circular driveway.
So that the driveway doesn't, so that the garage doesn't face the street, so it's a bit more civilized.
Yeah, you
So
know,
understood.
whenever there's a circular drive, there's some component of, aesthetics or moat to go along with the castle, as I used to say. But there's also, we heard, there's retaining the stone walls. The neighbors are agreeing that it's a safety issue. So it's all encompassing. I'm sure that's part of it. There's nothing wrong with having a moat to go with your castle. If it's within the prevailing character and there's safety issues involved, then you have the room to do it. So is anyone ready to make a motion? And I guess we've established that the hut or the warming shed or whatever you want to call it is to be where it is. It's raised to allow animals. It's been, and Mr. McCormick or his client will certainly have to still duke it out in due course, perhaps with TRCA, but this is, I guess, a starting point of keeping it where it is and not the idea of disturbing as little as possible, keeping the stone wall and trying to keep everyone happy, including, you said, like with the deck, removing a deck. One of the neighbors said, well, we really wish they weren't removing the deck. Okay, so is someone ready to weigh in on this? And I guess we have all those conditions from planning, and we have TRCA.
I'm prepared to move a motion for approval. Variances requested are minor in nature. So that's subject to planning conditions. So the proposed development shall be constructed as illustrated on the front and rear elevation, submitted September 20th, 21 and held on file. as it relates to the building height, and as it relates to the hammerhead driveway, and then bird-friendly treatments on all new windows and clear balconies facing the ravine. Exterior lights are dark sky compliant and native plant species along the street frontages. And subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconder for Mr. Palmer's motion, Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. McCormick, and thank you for the positive neighborhood support from the two neighbors who weighed in. Next application is item number 31, 5 Cutler Crescent. It's an application to construct a 2-story south side addition, a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling, a new front porch, and a new rear yard deck. There are 5 variances. We have a cover letter, minutes of the previous hearing. This was deferred from the July 13, 2021. Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2. We have a covering letter, and planning has given us a report for information. There are 5 letters of support, 17 letters of opposition, and then we also have the materials from the previous hearing. Registered to speak on this application is Joe Sabatino, the agent, as well as the neighbors at 1 and 7 Cutler Crescent. Mr. Sabatino, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Joe Sabatino at 34 Moines Avenue. I am the agent and the designer for this project here. We're planning to build a 2nd-story addition over existing bungalow. Working with planning the last couple of months to get the numbers down from our previous application. We did eliminate 2 of the variances, the building length and the rear platform, due to a lot of neighbors complaining about the platform, privacy issue. We did reduce the numbers on the gross floor area to what is acceptable for planning, and the coverage, we got it down to 37%. A lot of it's got to do with the overhang over the back deck, which is calculated. The actual house is within the 33% allotted lot area. The 2 of the setback variances are due to the fact that it is an existing structure and we have no control over that. The soffit heights, we're asking for 6 inches, only because we got to work with the existing main floor. Once we do a 9-foot main floor and an 8-foot second floor, that's where the numbers.
We lost the room.
I'm not coming next week.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
And then, they had oppositions to that. Once we clarified everything and explained to them that we are not coming forward with the house, we are not going back. We have actually cut back some of the rear yard or the rear garage to comply with the with planning. They seemed to be okay with that. Actually, we got 10 to 12 signatures of support once we explained everything to them, that we got rid of the balconies. There are no trees being impacted on this whatsoever. Also, keep in mind that 35 Cools Court, which is 2 streets over, I believe, has applied for a similar build in August, and they were granted, they were approved for 59% gross floor area, 7.4 meters in height, and 0.82 side yard, which is more than what we're asking for. So I don't believe we're asking more than anybody else received in the area. Planning did tell us to keep it in line with everything else, and we believe we did. We've met a lot of the concerns of the neighbors. If you notice, like the 10 to 12 signatures of support that we got once we showed the revisions. A few of the neighbors, they just don't want a 2nd story in the neighborhood, and no matter what we said, we could not sway them. So, and I believe some of them will be speaking today. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we hope for your approval in this, and we see it as minor variances.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sabatino at this point before we hear from the neighbors? Okay, first neighbor is, I see we have, we have support letters, and we have 17 letters of opposition, as well as, it looks like one of the neighbors is speaking, has given us a fulsome presentation. That's the second speaker at 7 Cutler. But first we'll hear from 1 Cutler Crescent, Anna Cowland. I believe you
Yes,
may-
good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Anna Cowland. Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna. Thank you. My name is Anna Cowland. I live at 1 Cutler Crescent and have so for 27 years. Much of what needs to be said has already been addressed. It does say there, we actually had 24 letters of objections to the revised plan. The numbers that Mr. Sabatino mentions are some of the neighbors who are not even on the street or in the vicinity. However, it's certainly very intimidating moving forward that the neighbors who wrote letters all had the same sentiment, that this overdevelopment on Cutler was just not appropriate. The cumulative scale of the 5 variances requested would result in a gross overdevelopment and erode the aesthetics of the streetscape. This is a dangerous precedent, and it would have a negative impact on the neighborhood. The 0.9 meter setback that proposed on the south yard, which would impose a number 3 color, has not been addressed. While it appears a 0.9 meter setback exists on the current garage wall, the applicant has identified in the basement plan site plan Z02.2 that they intend to, quote, cut down the foundation wall to the first floor elevation. The first floor site plan Z02.3 also notes new wall on existing foundation, end of quote. This clearly shows the intention to use the existing south garage foundation wall and setback as a loophole to justify the proposed setback for the new portion of the structure. There appears to be no other financial cost benefit of keeping just the footing when so much of the existing condition is being modified. The exterior door proposed from the side garage raises questions about the appropriateness of the reduced setback, when even walking out of the side garage door with a lawnmower or a stroller would be quite an endeavor. The plan to expand on the existing south garage wall, both horizontally and vertically within this setback, would exaggerate the existing condition and further emphasize the perceived height of the 2-story dwelling. What the numbers fail to demonstrate is the unique impact the requested variance will have on number 3 Cutler. The main concern with this variance is the loss of light, space, and airiness between the 2 houses that currently exist and has so for the last 70 years. The issue of light is not a trivial matter that can be easily disregarded. We need to protect the space and light entering the kitchen, bedroom, 2 basement windows, and side entrance door that have been enjoyed since these homes were built 70 years ago. The photos that I have provided show how the bungalow relies on the light entering in on the north side. With this proposed wall at 0.9 meter, this would block the natural light entering 3 Cutler. This would be a liability to and a great hardship for the property of and the residents of 3 Cutler. If approved, 5 Cutler would have a house designed with maximum fenestration and the benefits of natural light, while the abutting houses, including the rear vegetable garden of 60 Mitcham, would be forever in a shadow. The only true comparable that was offered, Mr. Sabatino has even mentioned it, was, anyways, I won't even bother with that. I'm not familiar with Cool's Court, other than to know that that wasn't provided to us. The current placement of the front wall is over a meter closer to the street than what the bylaw permits. The plan to expand on this wall would further exaggerate the existing condition and would be quite imposing. This would set a negative precedent for the street if passed. Many people will watch and review this committee meeting and will be left wondering, is it worth the effort to try and preserve the neighborhood character if 24 letters with unique and legitimate concerns about a proposed new build that would be 700 square feet over what the bylaw recommends can't make a difference? What is the point in trying? In concluding, the new build proposed here does not respect the character of the street. This house would be an extreme outlier. Looking at the 4 tests that must be passed in order to gain approval, it is clear that the proposed variances would have a major impact and do not follow the official plan in any way. The zoning bylaw exists for an important reason, and the builders should be required to adhere to them. Rather than viewing these requests, as minor, it should be seen as a sign that this lot is being overbuilt. We respectfully ask for a refusal of this overdevelopment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Cowland. Any questions from Ms. Cowland before we go on to the next speaker? Okay, the next speaker is Julia Dempsey of 7 Cutler, and we have her presentation. I believe it's opposition letter number 10. Sorry, number 9. Ms. Dempsey?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Hello. I've asked staff to put your presentation up on the board while you make your presentation, your materials.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you. A lot of hours. Am I okay to begin?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, committee members and chair. I live at 7 Cutler, the next door neighbor to the north of the subject property. Thank you for the chance to speak. I will try to be as efficient as possible here while explaining how the proposal does not meet the 4 tests. So as you can see, the proposed FSI is almost 3 times larger than the current home and is over 30% larger than what the bylaw alone is evidence that the variance for FSI.
Oopsie. Oopsie.
But we're still in the room.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
We hear you now. You're off. Are we back on the room? Okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
Members, we're good? Yeah, they're shaking their head. Everyone can hear you now. Please continue.
Okay. Where was I? This overage alone is evidence that the variance for FSI does not pass the first test, and that is without even considering the negative impacts on the abutting homes. The owner could double the square footage and still be within the bylaw. And seeing as many of the bungalows on Cutler have housed families of 5 or more, there has been no legitimate explanation given as to why the variance for FSI is needed. Next page, please. This visual shows the homes in objection highlighted in red and those in support in green. So this speaks to the second test of desirability, and I would please ask the committee to take the concerns of the neighbors seriously. There is a home on Cutler getting a 2nd-story addition while staying completely within the bylaw, and they have received 0 opposition. I spoke with the planning department after seeing design number 3 to try and understand why so little was done to address the concerns that were raised. I was told that there was nothing else that planning could ask for without having the applicant submit an entirely new design.
Yeah, you keep cutting in and out.
Can you hear me okay?
Now we can.
Okay. Okay. Right here. In my opinion, this would imply that the design is not appropriate for the lot.
We've lost you again.
Members, can you hear?
Should I?
Do you want to try calling in?
Yes, for sure. I can do that right now.
Okay, the contact information and passwords on the invitation.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like they're all bungalows.
Enter your attendee ID number, followed by pound.
Hi, can you hear me now?
You can now.
Yes, okay. Okay, I'm getting nods. Okay, I'm so sorry. I will pick up where I left off here. So the City of Toronto website states that any owner of any land, building, or structure who has been unable to comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw can submit an application for a minor variance. So it seems to me that this process is being abused and the applicant is not so much unable, but unwilling to comply with the zoning bylaw. Next page, the panoramic shots there, yeah. So here are two panoramic shots of Cutler Crescent showing the character of the street. There is obvious rhythm to the street and uniform spacing, roof lines, and scale. As you know, the city's official plan talks repeatedly about respecting and reinforcing the existing character, and clearly in this case, that would not happen. So as such, this proposal does not meet the test of maintaining the general intent and purpose of the official plan. Next page, please. This is the applicant's cover letter, which I wanted to comment on just very briefly. The first highlighted section states that the owner worked with planning to remove the second-story platform and reduce the length of the building. I would just like to point out that these changes were both made back in July before the previous hearing, and that planning reviewed these changes and stated that their original report recommending deferral or refusal still applied. The other quick note here is the line stating that the applicant is unable to reduce their side yard setback. So as you would have seen in the revised design, the back wall of the garage is to be brought in by about 3 feet. So it would seem to me that it would be possible to do the same with the side wall of the garage that is causing the variance to the side yard setback. Next page, please. Regarding the front yard setback, the current home is too close to the street. However, as it's a bungalow, the impacts of that are very minimal. If that front wall were to be raised up to a second story, the impact would become significant. And add on to that a prominent covered porch that presents as part of the building, and the front yard setback variance would seem much more imposing, as well as impede the line of sight that currently exists for both abutting homes. Next slide, please. Another very quick point here. What you see are quotes, each one from a different neighbor's letter of objection. I read through each one and noticed a recurring theme that almost every single letter mentioned the character of the street and how this proposal would be detrimental to the streetscape. Next page, please. So in the interest of time, I won't speak on this slide as it's quite self-explanatory. This is just showing the number of stories of the surrounding homes, which as you can see are all one. This is not a street in transition. Next page. So this here is a rendering placed onto the lot, and I'll just comment briefly, as Joe mentioned, I'm not an architect. I did this to the very best of my ability, which I did tell neighbors, and I used the walls of the existing home.
We're out of the room.
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound. Invalid event panelist numeric password. Try again.
Next page, please. So to conclude, I have this visual from the City of Toronto breaking down the 4 tests. This proposal does not pass test number 1, as some of the variances requested cannot be considered as minor even on their own. And as shown here, privacy and shadowing are taken into consideration when looking at the impact on surrounding properties. The second test is a bit too ambiguous for me to say whether or not it passes, but from the perspective of neighbors, it is not appropriate for this lot. This proposal does not pass test 3 or 4, as both the zoning bylaw and official plan are completely disregarded. My final point is that the applicant has reduced the proposed floor area from 311 square meters to 280 square meters. This change is being presented as a significant change that certainly is not minor. And yet, this change is a reduction in FSI of only 10%. So how can it be argued by the same applicant that a variance of over 30% is minor? I believe that the residents of Cutler Crescent have faith in the system and that the committee will see this proposal for what it is. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I respectfully would ask that the application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dempsey. Very comprehensive proposal. So your position, it just doesn't figure out it's not an area in transition. Every other house is 1 story. And this, although not only
Exactly.
2 story, is really pushing the envelope.
Yes, exactly.
And I want to ask Mr. Sabatino, because I look on your plan, your rendering stuck in the middle of the street looks very like sometimes applicants or neighbors put it on and it's maybe not the right scale, but it looks like you've done a good job. It looks similar to what Mr. Sabatino has presented. So I'm going to ask him to confirm that in his email. If you look at his plans, it looks, he doesn't show the adjacent homes like you do, but it looks more or less the same. So I'm going to ask him to comment. Okay, any questions for Ms. Dempsey before I go back to Mr. Sabatino? Everyone's good? Okay. Okay, Mr. Sabatino, so if you can please rebut the neighbors and just confirm for me that your drawing on your first sheet is very similar, or it's a proper depiction, tell me if it's not, in Ms. Dempsey's presentation.
Yeah, it is. It is the exact picture. I mean,
Yeah.
she took it
Okay.
and reduced it to try and get it as close as she can.
Yeah, so you have 5 minutes to, to rebut what the neighbors have had to say.
Okay, well, first of all, then speaking with Anna, about Anna, I met her husband, Mr. Cullen, there on the property, and he wanted to know exactly, and I showed him how we set back the garage, and the second story is going to be set back even further, so it would not impact his kitchen window or the side door. We were there. I showed him exactly on the driveway where the garage would start, and he seemed okay with it. Didn't dispute it. He said he was fine with that. As for the 24 letters of opposition, if you read them, a lot of them are duplicates from back in July. Some are even triplicates. So I mean, everything's on file, so you can view it yourself if you have to. Other than that, I mean, my client requires a 4-bedroom home, and that extra square footage is basically the bedroom over the garage. We're not applying to build a second story. We could build a second story. The fact is, we just need that extra square footage to get that 4th bedroom up there. I know a lot of neighbors don't want a second story, but I mean, pretty well every homeowner has a right to build a second story.
For sure.
We know that the addresses of support. I mean, Julia shows 1 or 2 letters, neighbors supporting on Cutler. We have five on Cutler alone, and the rest are in the neighborhood in the neighboring street. What is it, Mitcham? I believe it is. So I mean, the same with their letters of opposition. A lot of their opposition letters are on Mitcham, and ours don't count, and theirs do. I don't understand that. Fair is fair here. As for the gross floor area, it's 14%. It's the same as what planning told us to not go over what's been approved in the area. 35 Cools Court got that amount, and they got even more with the setbacks and the height. We're asking for less. So,
sorry, what court? What did you say, sir? Where's that other street?
35 Cools Court. It's 2 streets over. Similar, all bungalows. They got approved for a second story with more variances than we're asking for.
Yeah, what GFA?
Planning asked me to stay. They got 59%.
Yeah, okay, because I think the situation you're finding here is that these are really small homes. Even though 0.45 area lot is permitted, it seems like most of the homes, including the subject property, is significantly less. I think it's so when you go to that change and just to go to what's permitted is almost doubling, and then you go to 0.59, it's almost tripling. So the change seems that much more because you're not comparing it to what's permitted.
The extra, like I said, the extra is over the garage.
Our job is to compare what's permitted to what's being proposed, but human nature is you compare it to what's there now to what's proposed. So instead of just being 50% increase, it's 150% increase to the casual observer in the neighborhood or the neighbors. The issue is, I guess, what the committee has to decide is change is supposed to be gradual. So is this too big of a bump or not? That's what the committee members have to decide. So sorry for interrupting, but please continue. That's basically the nexus of it compared. So I just wanted to know where that other street was to put in context because it didn't show up on my location map. Do you have other examples in the neighborhood of
no, there
0.59 type coverages?
This was the problem. I mean, a couple of streets over, there's a lot of 2-story houses. I mean, committee planning asked us to take other variances in the area, and there weren't many. So we had to go a little further, and we found they told us to expand our parameters in looking for it. So we found 62, 64, and that's not including the severed lots, which are getting 87% type GFA and stuff like that. So we found, that's why our first application was 64, 65%, because that's the most we found. The homeowner wanted a home office. He got rid of the home office. We reduced the bedrooms, we reduced the garage, we reduced the family room. He's reduced a lot. He gave up a lot. This is his, his dream home that he's trying to build, and we're trying to keep everybody happy. I know he's got to live with the neighbors in the end. And when Cool's Court came up, and it's 2 blocks away, and it's all surrounded by bungalows, committee approved it. We're asking for less, so we're not asking any more than you've granted to anybody else in the area. I understand they're bungalows, but anybody can build a second story. It's not the second story that we're having the variances for. It's for the gross floor area and some existing setbacks.
Okay, one thing I just noticed, sir,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
in your favor here is that in variance 1 at 33%, you're at 37.54. The planning report does mention, the planning report for information, that without your covered rear and front porches, you actually comply at 33%. Did you mention
Correct.
that? Because that's something in your
Yes, I
favor.
did.
The GFA is high, but the coverage is actually really, you really do comply at 33%, except for the 2 covered
Correct.
porches. Okay. Okay, would you like to add anything else, or we can see if committee members have any questions or if they're ready to make a decision on this? Okay, you're done?
I'm done.
Thank you. Any questions, committee members, for either the applicant or the neighbors? Mr. Kumaric?
Question for the applicant. The existing front setback, that's being maintained to what it is. There's no attempt at setting it.
Nothing whatsoever. We're building on top of the existing wall.
Right, because you're not doing a new house, you're doing an addition.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
No other questions? Let's take it into committee for a decision. Never someone ready to weigh in with a motion.
I'm prepared to move a motion. The neighbors made a really good presentation, and they should be commended for that. But I think what we're looking at, we're looking at a second story on an existing dwelling. So I'm going to move for approval. I find the variances requested minor and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. And that will be subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Correct. No other variant. I don't think there's any other conditions. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Seconder for that motion.
I just wanted to say I will not be supporting this motion because it does not maintain the character of the existing character of the neighborhood. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Holmes. Is anyone else prepared to second Mr. Palmer's motion? If not, the motion fails. In that case, can I have another motion? Ms. Alderson?
Yeah, I'm prepared to make that motion. I don't believe this meets the 4 tests. I think it is I think for that particular site, it is an overbuild, even though it's permitted. I think with the bungalows on the street, all of the bungalows on the street, I don't think it's the prevailing character of that particular street. I think in order to find anything comparable, if you have to go over 2 streets, well, that's just a little too far for me. So
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconder for that? Ms. Reddick, thank you. I'll just weigh in that I tend to agree. I think that, they're entitled 0.45 as a right, but they're gone to 0.59. So it's a big change when you can't, it's hard to penalize someone when the existing is maybe in the 20s or 30s. 45 is as of right. And if they went a little, but it's I think, too much over the 0.45 in this circumstance because of the prevailing character. So I would agree. So thank you. That we have a seconder from Ms. Reddick. I saw Mr. Kumarik's putting his hand up as well. So all in favor of the motion to refuse the application? Okay, it carries 4-1 with Mr. Palmer dissenting. And thank you to the applicant, Mr. Sabatino, and to the neighbors, in particular, Ms. Dempsey, for her presentation. Last application of the afternoon is item 3350 Westhead Road. It's an application for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 5 variances, and this matter was deferred from the September 14, 2021 hearing. It was deferred to clarify the variances at that time. All we have is two conditions of approval from transportation, as well as urban forestry condition number 2. There are 5 variances, and the speaker is Fabio Cicella, if I'm pronouncing it.
Cicella, yes.
Cicella. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for being our last applicant. I hope you haven't, you've been having lots of fun being on the line all day.
We should celebrate after this.
Yeah. So very straightforward application, a couple of very minor, or 5 minor variances. And it doesn't look like anyone's weighed in with any problems other than that you're okay with the transportation conditions?
I am, yes.
An urban forestry condition?
Yes.
So I don't think we need a presentation. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Cicella, or is someone ready for a motion?
I've got a question just to keep the party going. What's the existing front yard setback?
Front yard setback.
Sorry, I could be a note from, never mind, I take that back.
So from another application.
From another
I
application,
knew
that's
that
fine.
too, for sure. Yeah, we have a length of a
Late in the day.
Yeah, it's late in the day. Okay, the length of the parking is a little deficient. Yeah, they're all pretty minor. Someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Question, is the applicant prepared to agree to the transportation conditions as laid out?
You already asked.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and urban forestry number 2?
Yes, absolutely.
In which case I'm prepared, based on those conditions, I'm prepared to make a motion for approval. I believe the application made the test.
Thank you. Seconder for that? Not all at once, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? All in favor, unanimous? The application is approved. And motion to adjourn? Have any questions?
Thank you.
No questions?
Have a good night.
I thought there's questions on the motion to review, to adjourn.
To adjourn, no question.
Thank you, Mr. Cicella, and thank you, members.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful couple of weeks. We'll see some of you back here in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, fellow committee members, and thank you, staff.